Hello and welcome to episode 437 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, a place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. My name is Vince Hunt, and joining me, as always, is the creator of the comic series Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And a man whose comic shop receipt is as long as his desktop ruler. It's Tony Esmond.
I shared that with you again this week, but for purposes later to be revealed.
Yes. Welcome to the show, everyone. Yes, we've had a rude word within the first 15 seconds.
Medical term, I believe the phrase is.
But we're going to have quite a big discussion this week. And I mean discussion. Yeah, I mean, obviously there will be opinions. But if you downloaded this episode or checked it or streamed it or whatever you do, because of the clickbaity title that I've given it.
What have you given it? What's the title?
Comics are dying. They're not. We love them, and they're not going anywhere. Yeah. However,
I'll die before comics go.
There has been mainly because the comics will fall on him in his crypt.
Explode up my anus.
What? You're not using them right. Anyway, so yeah, but there has been a lot of comics discourse recently, especially over this past week as we're talking about comic books distribution and all kinds of like the health of the comics industry. And it's something we've been wanting to talk about for a little while on this show. But
really come to a head this week, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it really
a certain
does.
aspect of the comic industry.
Yeah. Now, we wanted to talk about it. We want to have a discussion about it. There's been a few opinions. We put a little shout out to our folks as well. So we're going to be talking about a few different aspects of this. But this is going to be more mainstream. We're going to be talking about like the bigger publishers.
US
here.
mainstream.
Yeah. The US mainstream comics. Not so much if we're talking about certain things or like, oh, they should be doing, the classic thing we all do, the backseat comics publishing. Yeah, everyone does. They should be doing this. They should be doing this. If we're talking about that, we're not really discussing small press or indie publishing and promotion.
Or manga.
Or things like that. We're not going to be discussing things like that because we know that can be done so well. Obviously, there is a boom and it's more vibrant than ever. And we're going to be recommending lots of indie comics and stuff towards the end anyway. But we wanted to just take a moment to have a proper discussion about it. I mean, we don't want to get ranty and soapboxy.
We're not going to get moany, are we?
Yeah.
We're going to try not to.
Well, we're going to try not to. We're going to just.
It's hard when it's something we love so much.
Yeah,
that's
indeed.
Yeah.
The reason I think we get upset about it and annoyed by it is because we really like it and we don't want it to be.
Yeah.
I mean, we're lifers, man. We've been reading comics for as long as we can remember. When we will be reading comics for as long as we can.
Yeah. And we know you lovely people listening at home are exactly the same. So whatever we talk about, and certainly you may not agree. You may agree wholeheartedly with what we're saying, or think that's a good idea. That's not such a good idea because of. Keep the conversation going, especially on the Slack podcast discussion that we have, because I think there might be a fair bit of chatter there this week. We're not going to do anything we're not going to do anything controversial. We're not going to be really naming and shaming anyone like creators and stuff because that all stuff is bullshit.
I actually think this week, with a few exceptions, has actually been more constructive than we've previously seen. I think there's definitely a move for people thinking everyone's in the same boat now.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of the cold water in the face moment, and someone's like, "Look, we've got to fucking turn this around before it's too late."
Yeah, we've seen some discussions online. And it's gone backwards and forwards, hasn't it?
Already.
Yeah,
one of the main people was our boy Mark Miller, wasn't it? He was a big part of it, I think. Yeah.
And certainly when people have these discussions or say something on social media, of course, people can say, well, I don't think you're right because of this, which is fine. And then there's a discussion that goes backwards and forwards. We neither advocate or promote anyone who's just being ignorant or hateful or just putting their nose in because they're just a shitbag. And we all know there's plenty of them out there. But active discussion from all sides of a conversation is how we're going to try it,
and independently. We take no sides, as always on this podcast. We take no sides, but we're going to try and indendindly look at it.
I will take the side of my wallet. I take the side of my wallet.
Yeah, I know you do. That's
every time,
every day. But do you know what I mean? We're not taking, because unfortunately, comics is like what did I call it in that piece I sent you? It's like Douglas Adams is talking about a pedestrian crossing where you can argue that white is black and get killed on it later in the day. You know, it's like it's people will just, if one person says white, the other one will say black. It's just nonsense, and we're not like that. We don't do that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, no, it's that wanky culture war stuff.
It's just a wank, mate. It's a load of wank. Yeah.
Comics kind of got caught up in it, and as like an ideological battleground for whatever fucking reason. And a lot of the other industries that they've kind of pulled out of it or done okay. Comics seem to have not done great out of it. It's not done it any favors whatsoever. But
No.
It's
we
been
can roll around that a bit later.
Yeah.
You've got to look at it constructively. So we're looking at it. How can we help? How can we improve it? You know?
Yeah. And I
think is where a lot of people are coming online. I think if you look at Miller's tweets and there's a few other people, that's how they're coming at it.
Yeah.
This is a good thing. We could probably try this.
And things don't get better unless everyone sort of gets involved. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even if a publisher's doing all the right things, if people aren't making if people are talking about buying comics but not actually buying comics, they're not helping.
Yeah.
So
the first step is identifying that there's a problem, and there's quite a few people.
I think there's that move. I think we're almost there, aren't we?
It's to getting to the tipping point where people are like, you got to fucking do. We've got to do fucking sake.
Yeah,
can't keep doing this.
We've been a problem for 436 weeks, and we're going to keep being a problem for quite some time. But we're going to kick off this week's episode,
Modern Comics Review,
with a fun discussion. Now, this is something we've talked about in the lead up to it. If you've been listening for quite some time, firstly, thank you. But you knew this was coming. If you're a new listener, there's a bit of a heads up. We're about to talk about a new issue that came out this week, and this is the new Marvel Punisher #1. If you listen to the show, you know we are quite fond of this character and the lore, and that everything that goes with it. Sometimes we're probably soapboxy, like, oh, don't like this, or don't like this, or this is great, or this, all of this stuff. But with the new series coming out, we wanted to take a look at it and just, as we said, we want to see it for what it is.
Give it a fair shake, man.
Give it a fair shake, and read it pretty much sight unseen. Do you know what I mean? Don't pay. I personally, apart from like when we had the initial sort of like it was announced.
We haven't really discussed it, have we? What we thought about it each. We've kept it for now.
I've kept it, yeah.
Yes.
It's just strange because the way the previous series went off at the end, that was really very divisive.
Yeah.
And was like, fucking hell, why have you done this? This is an unforced error.
I don't know if you've seen, there's been a couple of opinions on the Slack as well, Dan, about this new issue as well.
Oh, I've not seen them yet.
Yeah, and I agreed with one of them very much so.
Now, before we start, because I can tell we're just itching to get into this.
Yeah. Give the credits first, man.
There will be spoilers. There will be. We're not going to give we're going to try not to give sort of too much away. If you're interested in reading it and you want to not have anything spoiled, then probably for the next 15 minutes or so, just forward past this bit because we're gonna get into it. But I just wanted to give that heads up first. So, like any sort of indie sort of comics review recommendation sort of thing. Let's start with the creative team, Tony.
So the story is called, it's issue 1. The story is called The Bullet That Follows, and there's a hint to that. It goes on in the story. Right, David Pepose, I'm not sure how you say it. He's the dude I met at, do you remember I met him at Baltimore?
Yeah.
Gave him a bit of what for, actually, Dave Wachter on art. We love Dave Wachter's art. Colour artist Dan Brown, who I may have an issue with because I'm not sure about something in this. Letters VC's Corey Pettit. Cover artist Rod Rice. Then there's variants by Miko Swayan and Frank D'Amata, Phil Noto, Salvador LaRocca, Edgar Delgado, and Scotty Young did one. I've got the regular cover, which is the Rod Rice one, which displays the Punisher standing in front of a target, holding 2 sort of ray guns, with what appears to me to be blonde hair.
Yeah.
He's kind of got like an army kind of crop cut, hasn't he? Where it's kind of it's a marine where it's shaved around the sides and back, but you've got like short hair.
In the comic, he's got brown hair though. I'd like to point that out.
Has he?
Go to the last page. Look at the colour on his hair there.
But it's not earlier. It's sort of a light brown there, isn't it? It's that sort of blondie brown, I think. It's quite strikingly M&M blonde on the cover, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm not sure because
I've got the physical, you've got the digital.
Yeah. But I mean, if we look at the digital, he's got like a sandy brown blonde hair, not like the kind of M&M style.
like looking at the cover, he also looks like those shield agents that we've just seen so many times in the background of so many comics. You know, it's that kind of costume with a little bit of a difference that we'll get into.
Yeah, that's a hard coincidence to swallow.
Yeah. So, as I said,
do you want to do? We get to sum up what we thought of it in like one sentence each to start with.
Yeah.
How do we think?
Fine. Yeah.
We can work. We just show our cards now.
Keep it short.
Yeah.
And then we can get into it. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm up for that. Yeah. And then we'll elaborate and no doubt surgically dissect what we think about the issue as well, and discover new things about ourselves emotionally and physically throughout the show.
Sexually.
Indeed.
Shall I go first?
Go for it.
Good art, good action, incredibly overwritten.
Okay.
Dan?
Mine's a mediocre effort that was designed to solve a problem where there wasn't one.
Oh, interesting.
Oh.
V?
For me, an enjoyable first issue of something that I'm really unsure how this is going to go.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say a really fun issue of somebody that isn't the Punisher.
Totally that as well.
Okay. Yeah.
And if I can just kick us off with this sort of further elaboration on that and you know my thoughts on it. This almost felt like if you were watching you got a VHS rental back in the day, and like you know you had the classic someone who's been wronged, you know their family's been taken out, and then there's the revenge story that begins. You'd watch it and go, oh, it's a little bit like the Punisher. It's a little bit like the Punisher.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's true. It's like a TV movie of the Punisher. We go, oh, I'm watching it. It says the Punisher, but no.
Yeah.
The thing is, the Punisher character brings so much fucking weight with it, and then you do this,
but
it
does not really lean into the Punisher-ness of it, though, does it? I mean,
he does kill, though, for those that are listening. Yes. He does kill in it.
The important thing. And some of the action, well, Dave Wachter, I've been
we all love Dave's work, don't we?
It's fine, man.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a question, though, about the main character. Is he scarred on the right side of his face?
Like a kind of burn kind of thing?
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure, because he looks like on his kind of right cheek and below, he's kind of like there's some scarring, or he's got an injury there. I'm not sure if it's all over.
It's just this shading.
Sometimes it's like rough and like he's not got a smooth face.
Because kind of the clearest you get is in the last panel of the comic, and I'm still not sure
I'm not sure if that's kind of like a bit of a thing there between what the artist or inker's doing and what the colorist is doing. There's a bit of
I get you.
Communication there, because
I mean, the artist and inker are the same man, like Dave Wachter.
Yeah. So,
but like normally, like when I've seen Dave, I mean, like the Guns of Shadow Valley back in the day, beautiful watercolor. I mean, obviously that sort of artwork takes a million years. Do you know what I mean? So
he's got that scratchy, almost Sean. I know predates Sean. There's a Sean Gordon Murphy to his line work there occasionally, isn't there? That sort of scratchiness
almost
on the
seeing
face
that scratchiness as well. Capullo sort of like that sort of ink. There's some fineness to some of the inks. So to see his artwork with someone else's colouring, which has probably been done a few times, I haven't seen it. It's normally Dave Wachter's done it all himself. There's a certain basic's too crude a word. That makes it sound so too negative.
Yeah, I don't know about the colouring man on this. I think
it really for me it sings in some pages and it flaps. Yeah. Like there's a page where someone gets sort of set alight, set on fire. That looks great. That panel when that person's going out, I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. But then you see some other moments where it's just a little, don't know.
It's an overuse of pink for me, and this is common in a lot of modern comics, where it seems to be that every digital screen reflects pink light, and we're going to spoil the name of the villain, aren't we, in this?
I mean, pink and purple are very unnatural colours. You won't find them going out in the world.
And this makes Mr. Hyde... Yeah, it makes Mr. Hyde look pink. Yeah, pinky purple. I don't know why that is.
One of the problem pages we're going to point it out. Like, there's a bit where there's a bar full of thugs, and he's the new Punisher guys after this chap. So they're all kind of waiting in there, like drinking, whatever, smoking with great big like kabuki style masks on, which I don't know how you do that. But like it shows you the outside of the bar, and it's called the Black Dragon. You've got like a kind of a pink neon thing, and it cuts to the bottom of, is it Garrison, the guy's name is? I can't remember the character's name.
Yeah.
And he's silhouetted in the pink, so he's like standing on the outside, and that's the light outside, and you know what I mean, you're getting a silhouette of him behind. But like the previous panel to that, you see a hand pull a cable out of a wall, like a power socket outlet, taking it out.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's going on? I presume that was supposed to be like the lights going out, but the colorist hasn't indicated.
I wonder if
that.
it's the jukebox, is it?
I think it's.
I don't know.
The light does get a little bit darker in the bottom panel, doesn't it?
Mm.
But like, there's an ambiguity there.
The lights
like,
the lights go off, but lights aren't normally done through a normal plug.
Yeah.
But there's this sort of the light, but there's a light in the top left-hand corner of the bottom panel where there shouldn't be.
There isn't there? Yeah.
Light.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on there.
No, getting to back to those kabuki masks. For me, that caused me a slight, what's this? Because they're too similar to me to a lot of the iconography that was used in the Jason Aaron recent run.
Right. Okay.
So
the
sort of demonic ninja style masks. I thought this was a hangover from that for a few seconds.
Yeah.
And I thought, who are these people? Is that something to do with the hand?
Well, they're from
the ex-soldiers?
They're from Madripoor.
Right,
as it says there.
Yeah, I mean, if it was me, I'd have gone with something that didn't reflect the symbol on Frank's chest in the last series.
Yeah, they are.
I mean,
in a demon gang. I don't know if they've been referenced anywhere else.
Not sure, but I mean, he could have just. You don't have to use those masks.
If we go around to the costume, he's kind of got the shield eagle logo on his chest, but through like the pouches and straps he's got on, it kind of resembles the skull.
Very old school Punisher,
right?
You know,
and they're sort of saying, "Oh, the Punisher's here," but it's like he's not. Like you don't know who this is. They make massive jumps, like not even a third into the issues, and it's the Punisher.
The thing is, this is one of their problems. Like the costume. If we can just focus on this.
Yeah, let's start on that. Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the I've always kind of liked the shield, like the white straps and like that dark uniform. It's the sort of reference. It's the reference to it looking Punisher-like, because he has certain parts of it which are glowing, and he makes a mention later that some plate, some security plate or whatever was glowing, and that made it look like it's the Punisher symbol when it's not. He does make a reference to that later. Ballistic chest plates. That's what it is. Yeah. The thing about it is, these ballistic chest plates, have they ever had a nose bit in the middle, like a skull, like the nostril holes?
Well, and it's pouch marvelous, isn't it? With just the most uncomfortable looking pouches right in your tummy.
Pouches where you've got to bend forward.
Yeah,
because you're bending straight onto the.
But saying that, we've loved some classic Punisher where he's had those big bits there. We've loved some of that when he's had the lycra costume and it what looks like 4-foot billy clubs. On his waist.
Mate, Captain America runs around in chainmail. We're used to this shit. Do you know what I mean? It's like
the thing where you're saying is like they redesigned the Punisher from the ground up because the Punisher was problematic for people that never read the Punisher, because people who never read the Punisher was using the Punisher skull on stuff.
Yeah, and people who hadn't read the Punisher were objecting to it.
Yeah,
there was that, wasn't
there? The Punisher objecting to it. So where do they go? They've got to get rid of the skull. So that's why you've got this shield.
So they've made a skull, basically.
They don't like machine guns and real guns, so that's the reason he's got laser guns and stuff.
Yeah, laser guns, which are still killing people. He's still setting people on fire. He's still.
The Punisher is kind of an ex-military man whose family are killed by criminals, and he goes out in a one-man war of crime. That is the same for this character and Frank Castle, and it's like, why? There's no difference. You swap one for the other, and there's no fucking difference.
I've got this conspiracy theory about why.
Yeah,
why out of the blue have Marvel created a blonde, white, murdering vigilante? I'll have a bet with you in the next 12 to 20 issues, he'll have gone wrong and will be full villain.
If they'd have hinted at something like that happening by the end of the issue, like this guy ain't quite on the level, that would have made this a million times more interesting. But it is so fucking straight.
I mean,
you mentioned it, Tony. It reads like an Image comic from the 90s because It's just here's a guy goes in, shoots up all these people. I'm a badass. Here's another big fight.
Which to me makes it not a bad comic, just not a Punisher comic.
No.
I mean, it's just a sort of regular. Well, to be fair, there's the dialogue, which I'll get to in a second. But if it was just this was the story in an Image comic, I'd probably pick it up if the art, which is good in this, it's like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of. I just feel like I've read this kind of thing before. I was expecting this a bit more of a kind of with the kind of the legacy of the character. But you could have just done something a bit more interesting.
But also, you got to think. This is a first issue. They're trying to reintroduce a Punisher. When people are reading a Punisher comic, they want to read that Punisher story. I don't know, but they're doing, and also this is the first issue, so it's what happens 2, 3, 4, and 5. What happens there are hugely important because the first one, I
guarantee it'll be a different villain every issue. From the past, and then Spider-Man will appear.
Yeah. I was unclear whether he actually killed the villain in this issue. It sounded like
I don't think he will have done. I don't think they'll have.
Yeah, no, probably like hide as regenerate.
And that's the problem. That's the problem when you have named villains in it. You can't just kill them willy nilly because they're IP, then, aren't they? But this, there was always going to be an element of cookie cutter first issue to this because you're setting up the status quo. All right, here's the character. Here's the setup. It almost feels like like a TV show version of a TV show that couldn't have the rights to the Punisher, so they've made their own Punisher story.
Like the G.I. Joe comics where they used real guns in the cartoon, they all had to have laser guns. Yeah, that's this.
But like you say, guys, it's what happens next, because by the end of this first issue, a lot of it is kind of done. Like his arc is kind of done. So how does he? Why does he continue? Why does he continue?
There's no plot thread set up for the rest of the story. Am I right in thinking that? I can't recall any. Like, we've got this going on, or this Mr. Hyde had this, which was kind of, I've got to look into that. It's just like, I'm doing this now. Okay.
It is actually an exhausting read. I mean, that's one of my main problems with it. It's so overwritten. If you go to the title page, with the bullets that follow, the page that to me looks a bit JR Frank Miller-esque sort of single panel. You've got him standing there with the first big reveal of him. Yeah. You got that page in front of you?
Yeah.
Go to the right and look at the top panel. Why are there so many word panels in that?
Yeah.
You could have stripped that down to such a short little punchy. It's just like non-stop. It's massively overwritten.
Yeah.
And the dialogue is so explainy.
Yeah.
Not even exposition. It's just explainy unnatural.
There are moments that I really enjoy. I mean, I
like the fighting.
I quite I think when it gets to the action and the fighting, that's when this issue is at its strongest. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Because there's a brilliant moment which and the panel itself reminded me of like Jim Chung? Used to do loads of Marvel stuff back in the day, like Young Avengers and stuff. It's the panel where he's smashing a bottle over across someone's face. And there's just a cool line where someone goes, "This farce has gone on long enough. Now my fallen brothers shall be avenged." And the Punisher basically goes, "Avenge this," and smashes a bottle. It's simple. It's simple stuff, but that's kind of what I want. I want more sort of like, just give me some of that popcorn moments. And it's just a great bottle of someone gets because the mask is being smashed up. Yeah.
When that AAA's talking to him, he says, "Listen, Joe, I know what the monster did to your Stephanie and the kids, but if you can bring in the Slovakian and knife, you can clear your name." So obviously he's been set up for that. So there is a bit more to that, but I think he just kills the guy at the end and he's like, "Oh, fuck it, this is what I'm doing now." But I still bring it back to the point: is who's the comic for? Did you make a Punisher comic for people who don't want to read the Punisher?
Well, don't forget, I spoke to him and he said this is a comic because he thinks the writer, I'm not sure whether it's the writer or the editorial, decided it's better for the Punisher to kill people in charge of big business than it is to kill pimps and drug dealers. And I'm like,
really? Okay.
Isn't that the role he's got?
I mean, you do work for a multinational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
but that, like, for me, none of that was truly present in this first issue.
No.
It seemed like a smaller gang sort of boss that had dealings with some Marvel Street villains. Do you know what I mean?
The last page is so fucking cringe.
Yeah,
I know mine has only just began. I'm ready to get back to work. Look, I know comics are cliche cheese, but that is just painful. Also, as I drew you to attention before we started, the last page, there's an earpiece that he uses to communicate with the computer lady who he works with, and it's in a puddle of blood. So he picks it up and puts it in his ear. Then
can we just clarify this, right?
Yeah.
Finish what you're saying, Tony, and then we'll get back to this. Go.
Right, so he picks up this earpiece and puts it in his ear, right? One, I thought, ooh, it's covered in blood. And then I look at it, and you can't see the earpiece in the drawing. No, it's not there.
It's not there. No.
So that's editorial's fault, to be fair. They should have been saying, right, he's put something in his ear, it's not there. Draw a little black blob in there.
When did
it's like that.
When did he drop the earpiece?
Yeah, that's true. How is it conveniently at his feet?
Why is it conveniently in his feet? Because it looks like it's in the puddle of blood of the guy he shot.
Yeah.
So did he just wander over there and then it dropped out of his ear?
I mean,
and then he just picked up again. He's a clumsy fucker.
Because he gets punched by Mr. Hyde through a wall onto subway tracks, and he sort of says, "Oh, lucky the briefcase took the brunt of the hit." It's like, yeah, but you have been punched through a wall.
His back just broke a pipe as he gets pushed. Yeah, well, I suppose he's got that bulletproof vest on.
Even then, he's got shield armor. So comics, therefore, it's comics. Yeah.
There's a pacing issue. Like,
mutant. Yeah,
he goes after this guy to kind of get him back for killing the wife and kids, and then he runs off, and then there's like the pause with the bullet thing, and he goes back and talks to the AAA character. And then the story just slows down, and then he's off back out again. Why have that pause there? Why not have him like, oh, he's gone this way, and he's on the bike, and then he's talking to that AAA girl and saying, oh, then you got to go down there, go down there. And then he has the flashbacks in his head, and then he carries on to the location. But sort of him to go back to his base and say, oh, blah, 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 the overwritten bit, and then goes back out again. It seems a bit like, man, you should have fucking tightened that up.
I will say this though, right? I know we're saying all these things. I had good fun reading this. I didn't think about any of this when I read it the first time.
No, we're overanalyzing.
I mean, that's what an editor should do, shouldn't he? He should overanalyze it. He should be staring at the page.
Yeah. I read through this, and like I say, was like, I enjoyed it for what it was.
I think I was the same. I enjoyed it for what it was. I found the writing in it somewhat laborious, which is not uncommon at the moment. And I just didn't feel like it was a Punisher book. But for what I think I said to you, Dan, didn't I? For what I feel it's like, it was a story.
If I'd have picked this up,
crime
it wasn't
story.
A Punisher comic with all this shit going on, I'd be like, yes, fine. You know, it's not completely non-offensive. It's whatever. It's just that when I got it in my mind about where the place it's coming from, what's happened before, it kind of tarnishes it a bit for me.
And don't forget, this is the second time he's written the Punisher. He wrote 2099 in Savage Avengers as well. This dude.
Right. Okay.
I hate being the guy that's like, well, why hasn't this happened here? But like looking at it now, and this was something I did notice when I was reading it first off. There's a police investigation that's investigating the scene where this guy's family. They got murdered, got blown up. That's what we're seeing at the beginning, isn't it?
I think so.
The two detectives are talking about it,
and they're looking at these things, and you see a flashback later on in the issue of like the house blew up in front of him as he was coming home. Right? They find here's a big spoiler. They find at some point some like TNT dynamite, like a bomb that didn't go off. How did that not just go off?
It's because another air vent on the wall.
But also, how did that not get affected by, I don't know, the other explosions?
The fire.
But dynamite won't go off on its own, will it? It has to have a fuse into it, and I think that's what they're showing in that picture. Is the fuse is cut if you look at it.
But I'd have thought the rest of the explosion would have triggered it.
Yeah, but if it's caught in explosion,
I'm not a fucking explosive expert.
I don't know. I'm not. To be fair, I'm not.
I think it's quite good that none of us.
Also, the most banal way to open this book. As soon as I knew they were doing a new Punisher book, I could have told you it's going to start with a pair of detectives investigating a crime. Yeah, like every fucking thing does.
That is a bit of a cliche for Punisher stuff.
Yeah.
I knew the beats. It was going to be he's going to appear in a silhouette, and here's the skull.
They hold that silhouette for far too long. My theory is that the reveal takes too long because you see him do too much, and I feel sorry for Dave Wachter because he's constantly having to put him in shadow for no reason whatsoever. So you don't see him. They should have had him in shadow in the doorway. Then you get the splash of him as in that Punisher costume, and then he fights them. It would have been much cleaner, much better looking, I think. You know. And the reveal isn't it all that. The reveal, we're still actually not sure about the reveal because we're still wondering whether he's got a scarred face.
Yeah. But
it's a nice page, but
there's not enough in that first issue that really makes me think, I wonder where this is going to go. Because I'd rather have more kind of plot hooks kind of thrown in that book one. Because
I mean,
it's quite a lot. How many pages is it?
You counted them, didn't you, V?
33.
Yeah.
Not
We're
enough.
getting onto the why V counted them in a minute.
Well, yeah, I've got a point to make. We can move on to that now because that's the other thing that was.
Yeah.
I balked a bit of that.
Yeah.
I'll say 33. The last 2 pages are an advert and a pin-up. So
yeah. I mean, you do get action scenes in it. You know, you get the setup of the character. It feels almost reminiscent of like if you went to like back issue bins at your comic mart or whatever, and you picked up when Marvel rebooted something in the mid 90s. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of like, you know, when there's New Warriors #1, but they're introducing the team for the first time. It's got that. It does have a reminiscent sort of.
If you rebranded it as Deathblow from Image, it would read like an issue 1 from Deathblow from 1990. That kind of
Really?
It could read. You could have this as Vigilante from DC. You can have it with a lot of things.
Yeah, but you know, I as I say, I love that Dave Wachter's getting this kind of work, and hopefully he got paid. He got cha-ching for this.
Yeah, man.
And it'd be interesting to see how many sort of issues he does, and I'm looking forward to seeing where the story goes from here.
All right, let's have a bet then. Right, okay. Put your money where your mouth is, guys. £5, 5 English pounds. How long will this series run for? I'm saying 18 issues. Putting it down now.
It's actually, well, I've opened up on the app. It says 1 of 4.
Oh, it doesn't, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say 4 issues. That 5 is as good as mine.
I didn't see that in the print copy. Just says 1 on the cover.
Says Punisher 2023 stroke towards the beginning. It goes, it's 1 of 4.
I tell you what.
I can't see that. It's
what about prediction of where it's going to go? You're given not a lot to go on, to be honest.
Yeah. I think there's going to be something at the end of the 4-issue miniseries that says there's more to him than meets the eye. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe.
It'll be super decompressed.
If his fucking assistant takes over from him,
yawn.
My fucking eyes will roll over in the fucking back of my head.
No, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I think they'll do what they can to set him up, and then he'll probably be a background player.
That's a piss take if this is a mini-series. It doesn't say it anywhere on this comic.
I mean, right, okay. That's another example of like why some of the fair play to the creative team. They've done what they can. You know, they've done their work on this book. So, you know, high five to you. And also, we read it.
It's on my pull list. I get all punished.
Yeah,
but it's written under a corporate an editorial.
But in terms of the publishing side and the marketing and stuff, that is a massive mistake. If there are madmen out there like Tony Esmond who'll just buy everything on the shelf without looking at it.
Wish I could.
But I mean, you thought it was an ongoing. It's 4 issues. They need to. Why are they not putting that on there?
They should be telling me that. It changes my attitude to it completely.
That should be on the cover. It says issue 1
of 4.
What should be 1 of 4? Why are they not doing that now?
I don't understand that.
That's infuriating.
The writer didn't tell me that either.
Yeah, I was definitely.
He was too busy having that discussion with you. Probably.
Yeah, he's still defending himself while I was looking angry. Yeah.
On the Comixology app, when you zoom out to look at all the pages, it gives you the title at the top and it says 1 of 4.
Interesting.
Fuck's sake.
Interesting.
Right, let's get into V's holding it back. He's holding it back. No nut November. No angry November.
Okay. Okay.
Me and Tony bought this in the morning. And then you kind of said, "How much is it?" And you were like, "Okay." So away you go, V.
Because we always planned to do it, and I was like, "Oh, let's have a look at this Punisher #1." So excitedly jump onto Comixology after the guys have read it, and I see that. I say, "Okay, issue 1, 33 pages, Marvel comic, £4.79." I'm sorry, what?
That was how the previous issue one was as well. For the last series, stupid money.
That is, I was stunned. And do you know what? I took that £4.79. I bought 2 indie comics instead. I mean, we've said it infinitum about digital pricing and stuff like that. It's ridiculous when you look at it. But for a title like this, where they want, if they really want people to get invested in this character, if they want as many eyes as they can on this new sort of initiative for a character, no matter what us grumpy old men, we like Frank Castle, say, if you seriously want people to get invested in this character, you want people to buy it. And if you want people to buy it, you don't fucking outprice it. You don't fucking have it at a high price point so no one can fucking read it afterwards. And I will say, if there's people out there who are interested in this comic and want to read it, give it a couple of... If you've got the Marvel app, read it there.
Yeah, just
in a
read
couple
it when
of
it
months.
lands on the Marvel app. That's what I would have
do
done.
that. And part of me is thinking that this sort of pricing is pushing people to do that instead.
I wonder if that's purposeful. Can I just say the physical price? So I bought mine in Gosh. The physical price is $5.99. $5.99, and Gosh charge you £5.85 for that.
It's not worth it. It's not worth that price.
I barely get any change. You can't buy 4 comics for 20 quid at that price.
Yeah.
No, mate, it's just unreal.
Yeah. We just had Thought Bubble, right? This weekend. Right. This comic came out on Wednesday. There might have been some people who might have bought it on Wednesday, but they're probably saving their money for Thought Bubble at the weekend. So they're not going to spend they're not going to spend £5 on one issue when they can better, and I mean this, better spend their money on two copies of something else. Do you know what I mean? It's
just as kind of to reference, to contrast it against something else. Big Game issue 5 releases this Wednesday. That's 52 pages. That's £5.11 for the digital version. So slightly more than the Punisher, but the quality of that book for me is that's worth every fucking penny.
The page count is kind of important to me when it comes to this, because it's almost impossible, as much as we want these, because it's digital, so you don't get an actual product. It should be like 50p each. That's nonsense. That'll never really happen. But in order to get kind of bang for your buck in a digital medium, for me, value for money comes in how much you're getting. And it's just like, what is the money the price per page? Now, if we're talking indie or small press or whatever, we know that you've put a lot of hard work and you've done all of this into it.
You're paying a premium there because it's going to the creator, and it's not.
These bigger companies, it's a different kettle of fish. I don't know how it all works, so I'm not going to backseat drive it here, but there's the option for them to be cheaper. Now, I used to talk about, I'm not going to spend over £3 for a digital issue, it's got to be special. And then I realised that I'm doing that kind of regularly. The issue that I'm going to recommend later, I think, was $3.20 when I got it.
Okay.
Was that a new issue, was it?
That was a new issue.
Right, that's good.
And I think that was like 42 pages. 45 for the print length.
You know where it's going, man. You know what's happening. You got to do what I do. I've got a Marvel app, I've got a DC app, and I've got Global Comics.
Yeah.
All I'm waiting for is Dark Horse, and I'm done.
Yeah. That is where it's going, because comics publishers, they don't have an idea of how to they either don't have an idea how to price these individual things, or it is a purposeful, let's price them into getting their subscription.
Look, I know they've got a business model to keep up. I know that they've got that. I know that there's printing. They only, comic shops pay 45% of all this blah 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 blah. But as a customer, all I'm interested in is whether I can afford it, and if they are overpriced.
Yeah,
this is massively overpriced.
Yes,
this is a fucking piss take. All I understand is when I'm standing there with my hard-earned money at the counter, thinking, can I afford it? and is it overpriced? And if it keeps acting like this, no, I've got a good job. I can't keep affording for this bullshit.
No, it's not worth the money to spend.
And the
you
average...
can't get 4 issues for 20 fucking quid.
That's madness.
No,
Ridiculous.
The average comic buyer can't sustain that. They just can't sustain that. I mean,
and neither should they.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Just to sort of finish us up on the Punisher. For me, the Punisher was a decent, fun first issue. That isn't worth that price. If it was half that price, it's like I probably would have been even more like, for $250 you can't go wrong.
We'd have been gentler on this if it was $250. Much gentler.
Yeah, and I
think you expect more if you pay more.
Paid a fucking $5 for this.
Yeah. It's a fucking nonsense, and the pricing. I actually did a rare go online and just do a blank dear publisher. This is ridiculous. I just did a. It's just maddening. But
this is bringing us kind of onto the meat of the episode, as it were. We're using this as kind of like that Punisher comic as a framing device for
because
coming up. And as you said, Tony, it commits all the cardinal sins.
Yeah,
this Punisher.
Yeah, because now we're gonna properly. We've still got our soapboxes, haven't we, lads? I've still got mine. Yeah. I'm still on mine. Brilliant.
I've got a house full of them, man.
Because now,
from the pandemic.
And it was just quite funny that this particular issue, I'm not talking about the issue, but the issue of pricing, this was bubbling up just as all these other instances about publishing and people crying about how American, US comics, the distribution is terrible, and you have like lots of discourse online about it. And it all sort of happens at once, doesn't it, lads? It's sort of like, oh God, I'm really annoyed about this. Oh, it seems like there's a lot of talk about it.
At the moment, it's actually not too bad at the moment. I think it's quite constructive. I think barring a few voices who just can't be shown to be wrong about something.
Oh man, that's terrible. Terrible.
Or can't be shown to be just like too fucking mad about it. Too crazily foaming at the mouth about it. There's a few people who talked about it. There's the ICV2 thing, which is a guy who actually, I've got the name of his shop.
Do you want me to read that, what he's put, and we could go through it? Or is it a bit much?
It's a bit long, isn't it? But I don't know if you want to pick a couple of bits out, Dan. So this is the guy who owns Coliseum of Comics, which, as I understand it, is a few different shops, isn't he? So he's written a piece for ICV2, which is not like a Bleeding Cool or The Beat or anything like that, is it? ICV2. It's very kind of straight down the middle. Yeah, kind of mostly a lot of business orientated stuff. You can actually pay more for ICV2 to get better sales figures and stuff like that. It's a sort of marketplace. I know a couple of comic shop owners who go there. That's their place to go. Yeah. Did you want to talk what was in it?
Yeah, kind of journalism. But someone said it this week, something like it tells you the stuff you don't particularly want to hear about because it can be uncomfortable truths. And this chap's listed a few. First one showed about price. One, $3.99 comics. I would say $2.99, but we've increased rent, labour, and insurance costs to cover. So $3.99, $4.99 is more a non-starter with too many fans. So that's
this backs if you listen to Challengers, which is the big comic shop in Chicago. They've been quite open. I think this may be in their podcast. I heard someone talking about it, saying that they can't sell comics off the shelf. So they put comics on the shelf. They can't even sell comics by the big names like Snyder or Tinian or anyone like that. They sell their pull list and they put comics on a shelf and nobody buys them.
Oh man.
Yeah.
We've got two, which is fewer covers. I don't really frequent a comic shop very often, so I have to take his word on this. Maybe you can pitch an ST. Fewer covers. I know this gets some pushback from every corner, but without focus, it's all about the value of the covers and not what's between them. Max of 2 covers while you're at it. Give us a hook to sell, not just another convention commission piece with no indication of what's inside the comic covers.
Yeah, I think some. I mean, it used to be. I mean, I've only ever done variants in the case of one set of comics, really, one or two. But then when Master of Kung Fu came back, I did a lot of variants from that just because I wanted them all and I was mad about it. But I think they've become lazy. I think a lot of them are. A lot of them will be stuff that's appeared on Patreon. I've seen a little bit of talk about this, about people who have a Patreon or whatever it is, and suddenly that will be a cover later on. Also, I've seen a lot of talk recently about people who do commissions, and then somebody will say, "Oh, it's nice to see that commission I paid for is now a variant cover."
Mate, that's fucking something else, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty lively, isn't it?
We've got.
What's your thoughts about that, V? Would you be happy with that if you paid for a commission then?
No.
Nope.
No.
Okay.
Unless there was discourse right at the beginning, there was communication about it. It was like, if I'm going to do a commission for you, is it okay if if someone asks for it in the future to be used? Because then I'd probably
reach out to him.
I'd probably be like, that's great because it may be a cover, but I'll have the original. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you don't know that and you all of a sudden it's used on a cover, I'd be like, what?
I think it's up to the artist to reach out to the person in the commission if possible. I'm not sure if that is possible because you might not know who they are, but then just use that as a base point and then redraw it from scratch.
It's horses for courses, isn't it? It very much depends on the case. So, say for example, one of you was 50, and I was buying you a special commission of Rod Rice to give to you. Right, this is a special commission for Vince or Dan because I know they love this character, and I've got you it. And I gave it to you, and I said I got you a special commission. You're like, "Oh, Tony, you're the best bloke ever," like as you used to. And then like you walk into a comic shop a couple of months later, and you go, "I thought that was especially for me, you fucking wanker." That's on the cover of Batman this week. It's a bit of that. It's horses for courses, I think, isn't it? But like if you say, "Oh, do you mind if I use this for a cover?" and you go, "No problem at all, mate," and then of course the value of it probably goes up as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, right. As you said, V, it kind of like you own that piece now. So, right, we'll quickly shift on to number 3: editors who are editors. Too many stories are lackluster and agenda-driven. Too many covers are con sketch dribble with no sales point. Did I just do that one? No, that's the one previously as well.
No, I think the editorial thing. I think is a big point, and having met editors from various comic companies and worked with some, I don't think they've got a grip enough.
No, I always thought the editor was the elder states person. I use gender neutral language to kind of keep the kind of ship on course and like everything's pointed in the right direction. But from what I can tell, there seems to be little editorial kind of oversight and things just go ahead. It's like, why are you fucking doing that?
My example always goes back to Sam at Nobrow and the books that he edits, books like In Waves and stuff like that. He takes them from the start. He helps craft them. He gives advice to the creator. He gives them like solid advice. Why did you do this? Have you thought about this? Yeah. What about this? What about this use of color? La 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 la. And then he's almost part of the creative team, like a hand on the tiller. Like that sort of thing. And then it comes out. But these guys are just page. We got a page through. Sent to the colorist. And they should be spotting things like that, like no earpiece, and they should be crafting that sort of thing. Yeah. But I know they're not paid as well now. These, I think, in the days when it used to be Len Wein and Marv Wolfman and Roy Thomas.
Well, that kind of goes around to part of the business thing of like they're earning less money, so they drop the prices of what they're paying, and that leads to an inferior product, so less people buy it, and then it becomes a vicious circle that you invest less because you're earning less, and then that just.
But what are they being asked to do? What is
what is their job description?
We don't know. But like, just say you go for a job as an editor, what are they being told to do? And certainly, what is that? Corporate guidelines of like, oh, by the way, make sure that it isn't this, this, and this.
Yeah, I've edited 2, but I did it under a pen name. But I've edited 2 books for a UK comic company now, and I was in at the start of them. And I spoke to the creator throughout, and I think I told you, and I had to rewrite a lot of the dialogue because they were from another country. Do you remember? And to me, I didn't get paid for either of those 2 jobs, but I took care in it because my job, my pen name was going to be on the book, and I wanted it to be good because I really liked the creator. Yeah.
That's fair play. I mean, every editor that I've worked with on the professional things, I've worked in a couple of relatively big magazines. The buck always stops with them, and they want to make sure that everything's kind of. If a journalist does something wrong, the journalist might get it in the net. But if the editors signed it off and said no, that's the angle we're going to take, they got to fucking take it on the chin.
But there's also like the planning and like scheduling of things like this. We hear about there's just no time to create these books. When we see like a mainstream book that looks glorious, is written glorious, everything that's gone through, and if the creators have had a great time doing it, it's brilliant. But there's just no time. It's not like we had 18 months to work on this storyline and do all of this and get the best work. That you don't have that. There is no, and like certainly when comics were done back in the day, they were churn them out, get them, just get them out there.
Always perfect, either man.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, yeah.
There's a little bit more heart and soul in them somehow.
But at the same time, and we've seen this before, or we've heard this before. Titles are announced like this is going to be hitting the shelves in like 3 months, and artists who are working on them haven't received anything for the things that they've got to draw to be in that issue that's going to be there.
We can't say who, but we recently had an example just about a month ago, didn't we, of a guy who had been in previews for a good couple of weeks and still hadn't had the script through from the writer.
Yeah. One other point in there I forgot to mention. It's on that point number 3, editors. It says it is clear neither Marvel or DC has a publishing plan beyond the current reboot.
Yeah, okay.
Which is pretty fucking damning.
That's sad, isn't it? I mean, we look at all books now and think it's going to be rebooted. There's no depth to it, don't we?
But
how many times has Daredevil
been? Miss Marvel.
Yeah, Captain Marvel, another one this week. You know,
another issue 1.
Yeah, like She-Hulk, they just stopped it and then put another She-Hulk and called it Savage She-Hulk and put it out the following month.
Yeah,
I remember when they made a big deal about going.
Yeah,
I remember when they made a big deal about going back to original numbering, and now it's so off and on that when they choose to do that, I'm like, what?
2 numbers. Yeah.
What issue is it? What?
It's weird because it's like kind of this isn't working. The sales are dropping. No one's liking this. So let's change the name of it. We won't change any other aspect of it. We keep the same writer, same art team and everything, and then we'll see how that gets on. Well, isn't it not going to fail because you're not addressing the issues of it?
I almost feel like we've got too many comics out there at the moment.
Shape it up a bit.
And
from Marvel and DC, I need to trim back.
So at the basics, what are the problems that we're talking about?
So what the 3 between us?
Yeah.
So we got. You've done price, Vince, so I think we'll probably talk about it a bit more as we go on, but we've kind of covered that, haven't we? I was going to do PR and getting a book out there and recognising and getting people to hear it, and Dan's going to talk a little bit about distribution. I suppose that's the way it follows, does it? First we have pricing, then we have
I think
PR, publicity.
So let's just finish off a little bit of pricing chat. Okay. The boring numbers bit. So make yourself a cup of tea, everyone. Obviously, we have our gripes with the digital pricing and stuff. The issues with pricing do not just stem to that. It's also collections, the pricing of books, like hardcovers. Sometimes there's vintage collections that are reprinted and brought out again. That you think that would be quite nice. I can't afford that.
32 quid for an Epic collection is madness.
I looked at that New Warriors one. I thought that'd be interesting because I used to love reading New Warriors, and it was something like that. So nah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty steady for Epic collections. Is they're 32 quid each?
A fucking million times,
mate. They're putting stuff in those Epic collections. In some cases, is 50 years old, if not more.
Yeah,
and it's it is totally. It's selling it to.
Men of our age.
The sports fans. Do you know what I mean? The people who are going to buy the new jersey every year just because they love that team. I think that's diminishing, and I think it's one of those.
Totally. Yeah.
There are people who would ride or die Marvel or DC for the longest time, and they're certainly like. Yeah, it's Marvel. So there are people who only read Marvel. Oh, by the way, if that's you, more power to you. Read the comics. Read the comics.
If you get pleasure out of it, man, you fucking do it.
Yeah.
Well, you say that a friend of mine, and I do it, man. I read them all. But a friend of mine on another podcast, I won't say his name, but he said recently in a fairly open forum, he said he's always read Marvel. Apart from I think a break at college type thing. But he wouldn't miss it. There's nothing there that he would miss if he stopped now.
Yeah. And like for you, Tony, there's been for the longest time there's like titles that you're like I get this every month or whatever just because.
Still.
But surely there's times where you're like I think I might stop this. Yeah. If you're doing that, they've got a problem.
Mate, I buy stuff. I own every Uncanny X-Men, for example. and I will always buy the main X-Men title. And that's kind of stuck in, But then again, I've always bought every Flash issue that's come out, for example.
Yeah.
It's so pissed me off, the quality of that new issue, that I'm not buying it now. And that's the first
really
in decades. Same with Thor recently. Yeah, that's happened to me quite a lot. And I paid £4. I'll tell you this story now because I promise you I'll tell it tonight. So I put a couple of pages from one of the new Amazing Spider-Man issues out on the Slack, and I just put, "Oh, just fuck off" or something like that. They were just so terrible, so poorly. It just wasn't
a very mature response, Tony.
Yeah, I know. They just
sometimes you just need that visceral.
I just needed to get it out. Yeah, it just so pissed me off sitting there on the couch, and I was looking at these pages, and I thought it's just one. It looks like a really badly drawn ambush bug page. It just wasn't Spider-Man. It wasn't the Spider-Man I was expecting, or that I should expect. Put it that way. And Kieran Squires, friend of the show, he went, "How much did you pay for that then?" And I went, I said, and I sort of did an embarrassed face and put £4.80. Right?
Yeah.
And all he said to me was, "Tony, I wish I could give you a hug." And internally I was weeping.
Yeah.
It's like one of those. I'm just like, I know I keep saying it, but I'm just such a mug.
Just felt like you've been fucking mugged off.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help some of the attitude you get from some of the creators that.
I actively avoid listening to what creators say anymore. I avoid it.
But also, this is completely over the top, of course. But Tony, you're an addict, right?
I know, I am, yeah. Completely.
And they are the dealer who's taking advantage of you having this addiction to it. Yeah. That's what it is. It's like, well, he'll always buy it. Do you know what I mean?
And the thing is, they take the piss out of me as well because so some of the series I buy the Avengers, I buy the X-Men, I buy Spider-Man, I used to buy Thor, I buy Batman, I buy Superman. But if there's like another Avengers title, like the Avengers meet the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, even worse than that, the Avengers meet a new video game character or something, they'll put it in my bin and I'll sometimes just buy it. But recently, I have to say, last 2 years, I've been giving them back saying I didn't order this, guys. And the Night Terrors thing recently, I should have given back, but because it was just terrible. But they seem to have just loaded my pull list with about 20 issues of Night Terrors that I never asked them for. They never asked me if I wanted them, and I'm like, what is this shit?
Yeah, why give me this?
Yeah. To be fair, the only reason I didn't is because it was the week I got back from America. And I'd been away because I've been away at work as well. I'd been away for 3 weeks. So I was actually picking up 4 weeks worth of comics. And I thought, I just felt bad. I don't know why. I just felt bad about giving them 4-week-old comics back because I thought they won't be able to sell them, which is a terrible way to be. I'm not doing them a favour, and they're certainly not doing me a favour. No. They're not the most expensive place in the UK to buy comics, but they're not far off. Yeah, there's some shops there's certainly at least one shop in the UK that's doing dollar for pound prices now, which is outrageous.
It's
not
good. It's not good.
I'd love, and we've got some friends, of course, who listen to the show that are working in indie comic shops, and as we always say, more power to you. Fight the good fight. We love to know what is your pricing process. We don't have to know why could people be doing things like that? Do you know what I mean? Because it sounds madness to us, but also I don't work in a comic shop. I don't. The financials are completely foreign to me. So
for the US listeners, it might be worth mentioning this because what are we at the moment? I think we're about $1.24, aren't we? I think against the pound at the moment, which is pretty weak for the pound. And so this is the translation between the two currently in Gosh, which I think is pretty fairly standard now. For a $3.99 comic, we're paying £3.90. So that doesn't work.
No,
it doesn't translate across, does it? $6.99, we're paying £6.80. $5.99, £5.85. And $9.99, we're paying £9.80.
That doesn't.
It's lip service to making it cheaper.
Literally 20 pence. They're not.
Yeah. I get 10% off in Gosh, but I'm not sure why. Actually, I think it's because they sell my comics as well. I'm not actually sure why.
There's a strange thing that they do, like the pricing for a digital is not much different from a physical copy, and they do the same thing with video games. And I'm sure there's a strategy to it, and I don't really understand why. Because maybe they're not ready to make the jump of we make the digital one.
I think they might have a limit where they get to a point where the higher ups says, if we get to this point where we're only making this much, floppies go to digital only.
Well, mate, as far as I can tell, they're well on the way.
Yeah.
They're well on the way. There's someone at some point who's going to say, we're going to make the press, because I work on newspaper stroke magazine, and the price of paper is just going up and up and up. The price of postage is going up and up and up, and that will affect the price of the distribution. Yeah. And with the digital, you've only got production costs and then popping it online.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, Gosh is the only game in town. Really. Well, we talked about this before. We've got the Thin Planet, which is a shop that sells comics, not a comic shop. And then you have to go a fair distance out to get to Mega City.
Yeah.
So that's all we're left with in London, which is one of the fucking top 5 biggest cities in the world or something, isn't it? You know,
the nearest one to me is about an hour and 15-minute drive, and it's 1/3 a comic shop, and the rest of it is like tabletop RPGs and bits and bobs like that. So again, it's a shop that has comics in it. It's not a comic shop.
For those that are saying, "Oh no, comic shop's doing fine," there was also another, the Spidey web shop. I think it's in New York. There's a video doing the rounds of the guy sitting there crying, saying, "Got closed, can't do it."
The idea of them, it's kind of doing well when you're getting lots of big comic shops in. There's a massive issue here. I mean, a couple of years ago, do you remember they did that the retailers and trade thing at one of the big comic cons? This was pre-COVID, and one of the guys got up and said, "Like, you can't keep doing this, man. Like, I'm not fucking selling anything. You got to sort it out." And he got absolutely derided. And
we just had Jim Hanley's close as well, which is a massive deal in New York. You know, I spent many thousands of pounds in that shop in my life. You know, it's a great shop.
Quickly rocking back to the points before we move on to your one, T. We've got characters are iconic for a reason. The movies never got traction until they leaned into what made characters decade-long successes. Changes give the story, but invariably you need to touch base with what brought them. Gender swaps, sexual orientation changes, and outright changes to who's in the suit are short-term headline grabbers without long-term sales, with very few exceptions.
Is that the thing where he said it makes Wednesday Warriors walk away or something? Is that the site?
He might have said that's in another part of the article in these kind of bullet point numbers. Right. It doesn't mention that. Got 5 tell stories about prophesizing. I've beat this drum for a decade or more, but here we are chasing away a large portion of a customer base where every need to tell as they want entertainment, not a serialized sermon.
Right. Okay.
So you could move that round to PR.
I mean, I actually think a serialized sermon is needed in some places because it's just a fucking medium after all. You know, it can be, but is it really needed in a Spider-Man comic? I would argue maybe not. You know, although they did the 9/11 comic, didn't they? Which it's
done. I was arguing on Twitter with someone today about this, but like, there's a difference between, and we mentioned it loads of times, between discussing and exploring a subject as opposed to almost like pointing the finger at the reader, saying, "Why are you like this? Why do you think this way?" And it's like,
it's all about how it's done, I think, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's the execution.
Yeah.
I mean, that I fucking banged on about that last Punisher comic where his wife just berates the Punisher and the reader. I was just like, this is an absolute unforced error. Why are you having a go at your own readership? The only people that are buying this title, you're fucking having a pop at them and saying you shouldn't be like this, you shouldn't be enjoying this. And it's like, I couldn't believe I was reading that fucking title. But there we are. I said I'm not going to get too ranty. I'm fucking trying to hold it in a bit. Yeah, I do find it frustrating that like you get all these brilliant characters to work on, and you got these resources at your command, and then you're doing stuff like this, which you just, and then wondering why you fucking have to go on Twitter and ask for fucking money to pay your rent.
I know. Yeah. Comic's doing fine though, but can you pay for my laptop, please? Yeah.
For the 3rd or 4th month in a row. Okay.
Yeah. So move on to publicity. So how are they publicising their comics? Should we move on to that one, guys? What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had a look through my pull list, and there's quite a lot going on in comics at the moment. And I thought I'd just do an open question. Can you tell me Any big events that are coming, guys? We
Nope.
talk about comics every day. We're in the
Nope.
comics world. Can you guys tell me any big events that are coming in comics?
Not with the big companies.
I know Krakoa's kind of just ended.
I certainly have
Apart from
absolutely no concept of what's happening in DC.
Okay,
No.
right, fine. So that's interesting, isn't it? When you think there are quite a lot of things happening on. There's the sort of Catwoman, Batman war going on. There's this big Spider Gang war coming up. There's Superior Spider-Man started again. Do you know who's wandering around dressed in the Spider-Man costume at the moment?
No idea.
Aren't they?
Nightcrawler.
What?
Yeah. So there's all this stuff going on, which I read them, so I know. But you two guys are so entrenched. I mean, we're kind of in the PR game here in a way, not that we get fucking paid for it.
Yeah.
But we do it out of love, don't we? You know, we're quite up for, if one of the writers said, "Oh, give me a shout about my Spider-Man comic," we'd be all over it. We'd do it straight away, wouldn't we? So we're kind of in it a bit like that. And you guys don't know what's going on at the big companies.
No.
I think that speaks a lot as to what they are doing and what they should be doing.
I mean, if we look at it like this, we just spent 15, 20 minutes talking about a new Marvel comic, right? Okay, this is quite a big thing for this show. We don't normally do that. That happened purely. The most I read about it was one article when it was announced. Okay, and us discussing it on this show. The more we talked about it, the more it's like, oh, let's read this. Let's look forward. Let's see what they do with this. My enthusiasm to read that issue had absolutely nothing to do with any marketing that particularly happened about that comic.
Well, we said we were going to do it, didn't we?
Yeah.
So we talked about it. The enthusiasm amongst us got us to read it.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
Went online after the couple of days after it had been out and looked up the hashtag and looked at the character, and there was people saying, "Oh, here's a new Punisher comic. Here's my review. Here's the new Punisher comic." No one discussing it. There was no kind of back and forth from people discussing what happened in the comic, what they think was happening, blah blah blah. Maybe Twitter or X isn't the place to do that anymore.
I think it's really stopped being that, isn't it?
I'm not even sure if it ever was that.
I think with social media, I think it's also a market where we follow the creators we like. Usually it's due to their work, and hey, if they turn out to be a good person as well, that is a bonus.
Thank God.
We continue and we agree with them and we interact with them, and you can have one-on-one conversations with the creator. That was
the beauty of Twitter when it started.
Yeah.
I'd rather just have ignorance and just have the good stories, and I didn't know who was written by.
I'm such a sad sack. I remember people like Bendis replying to messages I sent him, or even sometimes some of the creators I really love just liking things I'd said. I fucking screenshot those motherfuckers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was so excited.
My recommendation for this week is one of the creators I'm a big fan of, and it was purely when it was announced. It was all on Instagram, posting up bits of artwork, and I thought, I've got to read. Immediately saw the first post, brilliant, I'm in. They kept promoting that. They kept on the, this was months ago when it was first announced. They kept promoting it. They did different little ads for it. They're a designer as well, so they could do these little animated ads. There wasn't any, here's what I think about this. It was like, this book's out now. You should check it out. We hope you enjoy it, kind of thing. That's what it was, just constantly. And seeing the work for you, when you're seeing it with your own eyeballs, you're like, yeah, that looks beautiful. I want to get that book. Sometimes when you're online, a creator can be too pleased with their own voice about a thing that has nothing to do with the fucking comics.
Yeah.
That, by the way, I'm writing the big new Marvel event this year, and if you looked at the Marvel printout, it'd probably be nothing will ever be the same again. They do.
There we go.
But in 6 months, you'll probably hear me talk about it a few times, because the rest of the time, I'm shouting about something else.
Yeah.
When people make fucking, people say, oh, these Hollywood people, they're getting paid loads of money just to be in this film. Well, no, because they're also getting paid the money to fucking market the film afterwards, all the interview, and promote it. Just because you've made the book doesn't mean you can't fucking stop talking about it. You got to fucking... Yeah. And it's always now like, here is the thing I like, here's the thing I don't like. I'm going to rail about this. I'm going to talk about this. Where's the books?
Yeah, I'm now an expert on the Cenotaph. What was it last week, Gaza? It's like that, isn't it? I actually split it into. Sorry, interrupt, Dan. Go on, sorry, mate.
That's right. No, one of the things is like the social media interaction and follower account. I've hired people to do comic stuff for me. I'm sure you guys have done similar. And I look at what they do online. And if
I've done it for comics companies. I have.
If they promote their stuff and they're actively like engaging with the audience, that money's also buying all their. Me hiring them is also buying all their eyes on my work. If it's someone being an absolute arsehole, it's just like
I can tell you now, companies won't hire you if you're being a twat.
Why am I going to
Twitter?
get you? Because no one fucking likes you. So if I make a book and put a book out with your art on the cover, everyone's like, it's that fucking twat. I won't get it.
Yeah. And we're not saying you have to be lifeless, photocopy the PR. You've just got to be, check this out. This is out this weekend, and you should be really excited about it. Yeah.
Not a 12-year-old schoolgirl.
And if you're a raging arsehole, don't say anything. Leave it out.
Never stops us.
Never stops us.
Right. So I've sort of split it. I think there's a couple of different areas to this. I think in relation to PR, you've got the PR that's done by the company, which I'm going to talk about in a second, the PR that's done by the creator, which you've just touched on there, and also the PR that's done by the shop, which is almost something of a thankless task. And I think there's a couple of the shops I've seen online talk about this. So
Danielle fucking flies that fucking flag.
Yeah,
she's an absolute legend for that shop.
Yeah. That's a great example. Yeah. I love seeing. I bought things because OK Comics and Danielle Toot has said it on online.
They've shown books and look at this, look at that. Here's our top 10. Look at this panel. Look at this, and it's like, man, that looks fucking great.
Yeah, it's very. But the thing is, it's varied. It's not sort of like it's not
just their mates.
Yeah.
Same with Strange Apparitions. I buy stuff because he sticks it on his Instagram stories.
Yeah,
it just that because he'll every day he'll put out about 30 things, and I flick through. Oh my god, there's a load of like Planet of the Apes stuff there.
Yeah,
it's like that with him. Yeah. But anyway, so I'm going to come at this a little bit with some knowledge, and my stuff relates to PR in the UK comics industry, and it relates to probably 3 or 4 companies that I've had dealings and worked for. And I think we're overestimating the knowledge base within comic companies. I think a job that appears at a comic company is rarely filled by someone with our knowledge of comics. Genuinely, it's generally a low-paying role.
And I think we do have to sometimes realise, though, don't we?
Yeah.
As much as we rail against it, they're jobs.
Yeah,
they are jobs.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't necessarily, know all these things. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you go there because you need the work, and you don't have to be an expert, but hopefully you do your job well, and
hopefully you become an expert.
Yeah.
I think you need to quite quickly with any job become an expert in what you're doing. Anyone who takes on a new job, But it's not fucking brain surgery, but do you know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff to know. And having done this for a couple of companies, I can tell you now that at these companies are a lot of people who are straight out of university. A lot of them starting a comic company because they're interested in publishing in a much wider sense, not just comics. For example, the person who was in charge of publicity at one comic company, who was in charge of the PR and getting review copies in hands and getting good pull quotes and getting word of mouth, had never listened to a comics podcast, didn't really know about the comics landscape of websites, and just stuck to maybe 2 or 3 sites, most notably just The Guardian, and just generally chased getting a pull quote from somebody they thought was cool. I think that's most notable in the recent 2000 AD anniversary podcast, live stream stuff they did, which was just full of people they thought were cool journalists, people they thought were cool comedians who had no real knowledge about these comics. So I think we overestimate that thing. And I did an Excel sheet with all the main British, American, and Canadian podcasts and all the different websites that would. And we, word of mouth sprang up certainly in the comic world, sprang up about the books that I was helping with. And I think we make that mistake. We think these people know all about comics and everything like that. But I mean, at No Brow, Sam is an absolute ambassador for comics. And he listens to us, and he listens to it, 11 o'clock, for example. But some of the people who work for him wouldn't have ever heard of, because they also do kids' books. But I remember there's the famous case where the designer had never heard of 2000 AD, who was designing science fiction comics, And that was kind of one of my roles there, was to sort of say, oh, no, have a look at this. This is really good. What about this? That sort of thing. And I think we make that mistake. A lot of them just straight out of university, fairly low-paying jobs, but they've always wanted to work in publishing, which is what they see this as. Graphic novels are now part of publishing. I think we've also got a lot of people who see, because they're much younger than us, they've never been in a world where comics have been a mass medium product. So they've never seen comics on the shelves that we would buy every Sunday and our parents would buy for us when they bought the Sunday papers, for example. They've never stopped at a John Menzies or something like that and bought, a copy of Mandy or a copy of Misty or a copy of Valiant or a copy of Battle or anything like that. They've never been in that world. So they see it as a niche market. And I think sometimes are swept away by seeing it as this cool product that is quite niche, like being into a cool band that nobody else has heard of. They're caught up with that world. And they don't have the vision across what is truly quality to be able to see it. They don't have that broad vision that perhaps we have because we're so old. It's a weird world, man. I tell you now.
Oh God!
Yeah. Or knowledgeable, at least. Kind of.
But there's also. Sorry, Dan. You carry on.
I'd say if you went into another industry with that kind of like the narrow vision, you'd get found out very quickly.
Yeah.
Just like,
but the thing is with kids now, you can't find them out, can you? You can't find them out because you can't tell them anything.
There's an interesting. There's people I know, like younger people who still have hopes and dreams. No, but for instance, they don't really like watching movies that were made before. They won't watch black and white movies, or they won't watch movies before 1980 or 1985 or something like that. Because they weren't born then. Then I start crying uncontrollably, sobbing. But
here's one.
That's a attitude though, isn't it? There's also an attitude thing that's just part. I think it's a cultural thing as well. It goes beyond comics, I think, as well. That kind of attitude.
I was out at the pub the other night, and there's a couple of people there, a couple of younger people under 20 or around 20s, and I started making an 18 intro joke, singing the name of someone, just taking the piss out of them, and they kind of looked. It was like the 18. They're like, I don't know what that is.
Oh, I said something. I mean, I said to a 28-year-old at work. I mentioned Sid James and the Carry On films the other day to a 28-year-old at work, and they didn't know what they were. And this person is like Cambridge graduate.
But you got to know. Surely you got to know. That's real British touch point.
But you don't. But the thing is, you don't have to know. You don't have to know. They can mention stuff that we have no fucking concept of.
Yeah.
We have no concept of. That's just the way.
This is that Grandpa
media
Simpson
culture and everything moves on. We're always like, I can't believe you don't know the Ealing comedy movies. Surely. But does that also apply to the comics culture? I think it does in some ways.
Yeah, I think you got to know your history, man. You got to know it, because all that stopping making mistakes that were made before, bullshit. As well as there's a lot of fucking great creators who are out there. If you don't know about them, you can't hire them. You know. Yeah. And I think one of the other things I found, and I've seen this recently with a couple of examples. There was someone on the Slack who had just been told a load of stuff by someone who was in some particular clique, who were at war with another clique. You know the way comics are. And they just believed it. And I think sometimes PR people go down that route as well, of taking sides. I won't bore you with specifics, but I know definitely there's a big comics company who don't like this and don't like that and don't like them. So they don't go to these people who are in. I mean, I don't agree with everyone's politics in the world. There's no one in this world who has an exact political opinion as me, but I can have a discussion with them.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to sell a comic, it doesn't matter whether you agree with them about the fucking trickle down economics or not. You got to sell a comic for these people.
I mean, there's one of the many reasons I love Arnold Schwarzenegger, but like he's like, I'm on the right, but I talk to people on the left because the only way we can ever get anything done is people just talk and get things done. And and you don't have to have a big discussion about your politics to sort of make good comics. I mean, at the same time, if someone's an absolute abhorrent arsehole, you shouldn't.
If you're a criminal, don't fucking talk to them. But if you've just got different opinions around, I don't know, the war in Iraq or something, you should be talking to each other. Do you know what? I saw Starmer talking to Sunak the other day where they were lining up to do something, and I don't particularly like either of them, but I was like, I'm glad they're talking to each other, because there's some countries in this world, cough America, where they wouldn't be.
No,
it's madness. We've got to stick together.
Yeah, blood enemies, but you kind of got to see this shit through, man. Nothing gets resolved by not speaking and fucking drawing up the walls against one another.
And especially when it matters, because you're talking about paying the mortgage of all these creators you've got under you.
Mm-hmm.
So get on with it. Stop playing fucking stupid games. It's just nonsense.
Yeah.
And I think there's these people who get in people's ears and say, oh yeah, you shouldn't be talking to them. Like, fucking grow up.
Yeah.
Someone
did message me once on and said, oh, like, so and so's in so and so. So okay.
Yeah, we've had it a couple of times on here, haven't we? Yeah, and we're like, right, we don't care. We don't take sides on this comment. The only side we take is we love comics.
If you come to me with that kind of ultimatum, it says way much more about you.
Totally.
It says so much about you.
Yeah, you're not good for comics if you're doing that.
Yeah.
Where were we?
We're on PR. That's kind of all I had to say about PR.
Yeah.
Really. I think as well, don't shy. The other note I made for this is don't shy away from digital these days. It's gonna go that way.
Yeah.
How do promote digital?
How do we think these big two companies are with the promotion? And I don't
think they promote to outside the fucking outside the bubble, man. I don't think they do it.
Because I don't have a local. Yeah, I don't have a local comic book shop, and I don't frequent the comics news sites because I don't have one that I like. But so I'm unaware of the press releases that someone's copying and pasting and calling it an article. So, but
I'll tell you, when they did the Son of Superman came out as gay. That came out and it was worldwide news. They were talking about it all over the world, like articles on TV stations. And then that lasted 5 issues, 6. It's gone. It's like
it's
okay.
We need to get. I mean, there's so many avenues to promote comics these days that we're just not doing. I mean, what do kids do? Kids spend their life on flipping apps and YouTube and stuff. Why is there not an advert for the new? I get adverts for flipping the new set of steak knives you can buy. Why can't there be an advert for the new Spider-Man comic?
Yeah, I mean, so they certainly seem to give a shit about the MCU stuff, but the comic stuff not so much. But again, manga's eating their fucking lunch.
Yeah, I think they're very myopic. PR people at comics companies, they just stick to what they do. It's a job. They do it 9 to 5, and they don't reach outside. They don't really think, oh, maybe we can get on the start of that box set.
The comic shop owners are doing a lot of it from fucking love and care.
Well, the comic shop's a different thing, isn't it? In the old days, I think there's a couple of these comic shops we've seen pop up online recently who are saying, look, you need to help me out. I'm trying my best for you. I'm trying to sell these comics for you. You need to help me out. What about signings? What about posters? What about giveaways? What about getting your creators down here? What about featuring us in your comic? This sort of thing. And it's just not being done. And
it's a tough one. I wouldn't like to speak too much about the retail.
I mean, you're going to talk about direct market in a minute, Dan, but the direct market is shrinking, and it's the lifeblood of these companies. Why they aren't fucking actively out there visiting these shops, saying, "Hey, how you doing?" I mean, I did that for No Brow. I tried to visit all the comic shops in the UK and said, "Oh, I'm from No Brow. Here's my card. Have you got anything? Any books you need? And how you doing? We got some posters or whatever. Here's some bookmarks. This sort of thing. You got to do it."
Yeah. Well, I can bring it back to the distribution now because the main glaring points for me is you're selling this very niche product to a very small audience, and it's rapidly getting smaller and smaller. The only way I can go and buy American comics is if I've got to know about them first off, and go online and buy one, or I've got to visit a brick and mortar shop or store, which are going out of business at the rate of fucking knots. And it's How can you not see this as a real fucking problem? Because the product is, and this ties into the PR, the product is not getting in front of the people who would pick this up on a whim. I bought that #1 Transformers issue into work, and I sort of said, "Oh, look at this." And the lady sitting opposite me said, "My son absolutely loves Transformers. Where do you get this from?" And I said, "Well, you're probably best to get it off online." But she had no fucking clue that was out. And
where do you get it from?
Where do you get it from? You can't these specialist shops with they're hardly out there anymore, and they're shutting by the day, and it's such a niche, and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
And a lot of this stuff, you know, they're making stories. All of these characters that we love because we loved them when we were kids, and kids love them. You know, especially like a character like Spider-Man, fucking tailor-made for that. You know, that high sort of adventure. You know, fun sort of comics, and like parents don't know where to, because parents, let's just say the parents aren't comic readers. We've heard many times, "Oh, where can my son loves Spider-Man, where can I get this?" Parents who have gone into comic book shops and just been like, "I would like to buy this for my son, for my daughter, for whatever." You know, there are people that don't know that would purchase stuff, but they don't feel like they can. Or do you know what I mean?
Man, I've seen in the last year, I've seen some terrible examples of comic shops failing people who've walked in and asked for a comic because they're really into it for their kids. Man. It's I haven't done, but I've almost felt like stepping in and saying, "I'll show you something."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Because you
all those factors above apply that you've talked about as well.
Yeah.
You went in. A parent went in and said, "I'd love to buy a Spider-Man comic for my kid. Here's the comic. It's 20 odd pages long and it's a $5." See you later then.
I didn't realize they were that expensive.
But you could probably go, right, you know, find a trade. Here's a good story. Get them this. They'll have great fun with it. Do you know what I mean? Or let's go to the sale section. Let's pick up something like that.
Yeah.
You know, and God bless you, comic shop owners that are like, "Oh, they should check out this one."
Yeah, great.
But when it comes to those sort of recommendations as well, this is going to sound really cynical, but for me personally, I think like the shop shouldn't really recommend the latest issue that's just come out. They should go, "Look at this trade." You know, we're probably talking about a classic one from like, I don't know, the 70s or something. You know, here's just a fun story to get your kid into it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time,
it's the key element of the character that why it's so popular is because of stories like this.
Yeah. If you got somebody's just seen the Marvels movie, someone goes into a shop and wants the new Miss Marvel comic, you're going to give them that first trade, aren't you?
Yeah. But if
you're not going to give them the new thing where she's suddenly a mutant,
and then because they won't understand, they won't be like, "Well, what is this? This isn't what I just saw." And then the parents are going to be like, "Oh, great." You know, I'm not doing that again. And you don't ever want someone going, "Well, that was a waste of money," or "I'm not doing that again."
Well, that also plays into quality, doesn't it? Of the comic. I know we're not doing a deep dive on the quality of a comic, but it plays into everything.
Accessibility is a huge part of comics, which I think doesn't really get the highlight in terms of distribution. And this is why
you can't fucking get them anywhere.
You can't get them anywhere.
But it's none of this is worth talking about unless the comic is good.
Yeah.
It's not worth paying for if it's good. It's not worth distributing if it's not good, and it's not worth publicizing if it's not good. And there's a lot of product out there that is very fucking substandard.
Yeah. And of course we can say the platitudes. "Oh, just make good comics." And
like Rob Liefeld done.
Yeah.
Just make good comics. That's the solution.
And of course that's
a little more fucking nuanced. It's
really fucking difficult, and no doubt working for these bigger publishers, it's an uphill struggle going through all the loopholes and stuff like that. So there's probably all of these things that we're not taking into account.
But
carry on, Dan.
I'd say to round this off, because kind of we're getting near the end.
Yeah.
This guy's actual plan, he says, set a minimum for each title by store. Every issue over the minimum that is sold to brick and mortar retailers was 60 cents. This puts books on stands, minimizes cost to retailers, and helps print runs. So why should you listen to any of this? Because your livelihood is tethered to the retail community. Rome is on fire. Fiddle or get on the phone with some of your key retail partners and find out what it's like out here. But be prepared for some ugly stories Without some immediate action, I see 25% of the retail stores closing at the end of the first quarter 2024.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
that 2 years thing was something that a lot of people were talking about. I had no idea it was that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an American store, but I think 2 years, fucking hell.
That's like fucking on its last legs.
Yeah, and and there's something like when we talk about like how things are struggling and the numbers of comics are dwindling and stuff. I want to be very clear about something, right? Because this is always the pushback when someone goes, US comics are having a problem now. They're not selling as well. Someone will inevitably come back with like Dogman or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a different fucking market.
That's a different,
That's like Scholastic, right? You cannot compete with what those guys are doing, and they're making great graphic novels, and they're doing all their selling gangbusters.
To pretend they're the same thing is
they are not in your league.
Our market won't move over from reading the Avengers and X-Men every month to reading Dogman because it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
It's just a medium. We're one part of it. It's just like television is, like movies are, like books are. We're just one. The comic, American comic, and the British sort of flashback from that is one area of a massive medium. And that's what we're talking about.
And so they sort of say the medium's doing really well, so therefore there's not a problem in our.
Yeah, the medium's doing really well. It's nonsense, isn't it? Total nonsense.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, this title's doing really well. Well, that's brilliant for that creator. What about everyone else?
I said this before we came on the show, and people were saying, "Yeah, but look, all these manga titles are doing really well. Comics doing great." So yeah, but there's no fucking British comics in there.
Yeah,
there's no fucking British press. Yeah. Where's all the British comics? They're all fucking gone.
Yeah,
but they're reading the comics. Yeah, but it's not. Oh,
and it's
well, people who are saying that ain't reading the manga either.
No.
Yeah.
This is using it to score points.
But also,
that's the problem.
Right. It's another accessibility thing as well that can be said. Like, obviously, manga is in like bookstores and stuff. Strangely enough, some of the nicest.
Yeah, but the only reason it's got there is because people are buying it and interested in it, and it's solid. Like, I go into my local Waterstones and I pick up a copy of Watchmen that's been out for 40 fucking years. All these comic books, like classics, like Mouse. And stuff, they're classics, but the manga is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and new stuff.
Some of the nicest sort of collection of like, especially indie graphic novels, not so much mainstream, but usually indie graphic novels, are in some small indie bookshops. I mean, obviously they've got a big manga section as well laid out. But I've been really surprised sometimes. Like, holy shit, there's some fantastic indie graphic novels here of all kinds, all genres. But at the same time, you sort of, I think I sent you a local one to me in Bath, didn't I, guys? When I said, "Oh, the manga doesn't dwarf it."
Right.
It doesn't dwarf it. That was nice to see. Yeah. But the accessibility of like manga as well, because it's also very clear title, number. So if a parent who doesn't know anything about One Piece goes into Waterstones, One Piece 1.
Book 1.
Yeah, I think a lot of these people are going who are online going, but manga. All right, try and work for manga, mate. Try and go and work for manga. How you doing? How's your mortgage going?
Yeah.
Let me know. Apply for a job as a manga artist and see how you go about it.
Yeah.
Maybe you do it. You move over to Japan and that'd be amazing. But it ain't happening.
It ain't happening.
I as a sort of lifelong Marvel fan as well. And I know I haven't really read that. Punisher was a real rare instance for me. I'm concerned they're not going to disappear. Comics aren't going to fucking these comics because it's intellectual property. So even if it's just like the lukewarmest sort of like throwaway nonsense, stuff will still be around in the next 10 years. I just don't know in what state it'll be.
Don't know what form it'll take.
Yeah.
I can imagine
or whether it'll be worth reading.
Because I don't know about you, I've got no plan to sort of say this is what I think you should do. Like Millar came out with a lot of ideas, and people were kind of giving him a bit of pushback on that.
He came with the maths, didn't he?
Yeah. I couldn't fucking tell you how to turn stuff around. I might be as blasé as him putting good comics out. I mean, that's got to be step number one, like taking it back to editorial and sort of saying you need to sort this out. As Millar pointed out, like. Marvel was in bankruptcy, and they turned that around. Comics of the US comic market, Marvel DC, has gone through multiple world wars, recessions. But now we're here, and
we've never had a world where more people know who fucking Iron Man or Thor are. Just make use of it.
When I was a kid, I would have absolutely dreamt of the day I could walk into a toy shop and there'd be like Captain America toys, and now there's fucking loads of them.
Yeah.
But I think one of the main things about all this, for all our concerns, is for anything to get better with the bigger publishers, a lot of work needs to be done. A lot of work needs to be done by people who know what they're doing.
A lot of difficult decisions as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And hopefully decisions are made for the right reasons. That I'm concerned sometimes that there's not enough long-term thinking in that's
what that guy
comics.
says. He's no idea. Don't think fucking Marvel DC know what they're doing.
It's short-term as well, and it also suffers. It also suffers from not handling certain things right. I threatened the guys that I was going to make a wrestling comparison in this.
Here it comes.
But it's very much like the WWE a few years ago, and there's some wrestling listeners are probably going, "Oh, he's talking about wrestling." One of their big wrestlers is Roman Reigns, right? You probably know who I'm talking about. For the longest time, the WWE tried to push this guy as the hero, the biggest thing. He's the one you should be, he was winning all the time. He's the one you should be spending all your money on. He's the one you should support. And the audience were rejecting it for the longest time. No matter how many times they made him champion or whatever, they were rejecting it. They didn't want it. Loads of people were saying, make him a bad guy. This will work. If you can lean into, if the people don't like him, turn him. And they didn't do it for the longest time. And then he went away because illness and other stuff. When he came back, he was a bad guy. Business went through the roof, and he's brilliant. He's brilliant because it was looking at that. What do the audience? And in a weird kind of way, the audience wanted to boo, and because they got a chance to boo, they enjoyed it more.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes there's a real sense of like, oh no, you should like this because we're telling you should like this. No, you don't like it. Well, you're wrong. I don't.
Mate,
there's so much of this. It's so much of telling an audience you're wrong all the time. And
I Punisher fucking issue to the fucking hilt.
Yeah, and I
feel like I'm being told off all the time. On
Twitter. Yeah. And certainly.
Oh, by the way, pay £5 for the fucking issue.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
There's a lot of people.
Pull your trousers down when I'm talking to you as well.
Yeah. There are, of course, a lot of people who rant and rave. There's the negative bits, but there's also just the casual reader who just want to enjoy that thing, and they're being told, "Well, no, you're wrong." What?
We got the casual reader walking away. That's the problem. The quiet majority is walking away.
The lovely people, the ones that aren't going to shout and rave and start a podcast.
It's harder to what we mentioned. It's harder to reach out to them again because everything's shrinking up.
Can I just give a shout to Bunsey, who also mentioned Fredo Bars in his comment on the podcast discussion. Kieran, who made some really good points as well, talking about audience sizes and stuff, and Simon Russell, who also talked a bit about distribution and talked about promotion as well. So thanks, guys, for piping in. All like really valid stuff.
Yes.
I think kind of it's all a reasonable conversation on our Slack.
Simon made some great points about conventions as well.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing conversation. Of course, we've just been throwing some discussions around, and like I say,
it's quite a fucking downer.
It can.
I wish it was better.
It can be, but there's always those times that we turn around and go, actually, you should read this new Hulk comic because it's fucking awesome.
Man, come back to this fucking Wednesday morning.
Baby.
Big game's out.
Yeah.
All got complex PTSD from reading that last issue.
That fucking The Hunger in the Dusk are my faves at the moment.
Yeah. They make free new comic book day worth it at the moment.
Oh man,
exactly.
When it's snapping to the realization, it's like, oh fucking hell, that comic's out today, and I'd scramble for the iPad.
And also, when you bastards start reading Usagi, then I'll be happy.
Well, I mean, I tell you what, keep the conversation going with your friends, your family, online. But it's a discussion as well, and continue it in the Slack group. If you're not part of the Slack community, get in touch with us, and we'll add you to it. And it's a thoughtful and open discourse that we talk about on there, which is what it should always be. Obviously, we have our issues with the publishers or what they're doing, or the characters, or hopefully we didn't. I don't think we ranted about particular characters apart from the Punisher, but was because that was deep dive.
Yeah.
But as always, this is just like our feelings and emotions on it, and our personal thoughts. If you want to talk more about it with it, then
a load of flange, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And if you're enjoying those comics, and perhaps there's certain, I mean, Tony reads anything, so there's probably not something that he's missed. But for instance, if there's certain like a Luddite like me, I'm not reading Marvel at the moment because there's not really anything I'm really interested in. Let me know what I should be reading. Do you know what I mean?
There's a lot of that going on. I mean, Alan Purdy reminded me to read Giant Robot Hailboy, which I've been meaning to read, and I didn't realise it was out.
Yeah,
and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Fagredo, Duncan Fagredo.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
They just put together the Nick Broken show. They did. Was it Ghost Ship? The Ghost. When they did the.
Oh, the one we had him on chat about. Yeah. That's a trade now, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a good series, that, man. Yeah, I like that a lot.
So as always, comics usually live and die by like telling people what you love reading and getting people into it.
I've got a disgusting comic to talk about.
Cool. So we're going to get onto the recommendations in a second.
I'm an advocate. If there's a comic out there that isn't you can't see and you'd like made it your fucking self.
Yeah.
I'd happily read it.
Yeah, we're doing that as well. Yeah, so putting money where our mouths are.
So, what shout-outs do we have this week, James?
I've got a couple. So, Electric Chair 2. I don't think I'm allowed to say who, but a massive comic creator contacted Falp and said how much they loved his art this week. He shared it with screenshot and shared it with me, and I'm like, fucking right on, brother.
Fucking nice.
Yeah. So it's just made its money, but it needs your attention. This book, Electric Chair 2. By Falp. It's on Kickstarter now. So it's still got a little while to go. Thanks to everyone who bought a copy of DUI from Eamon at Thought Bubble. Hey. And shouts to listeners Danar and Marcus, whose money goes straight to mind. There's a lot of talk about mental health in the comics world. A lot of people talk a lot about it, and some of us do something about it. And I think Mind are a brilliant charity. If you've got a copy, why not just give some extra money to them? And if you haven't got a copy, I think there might be 3 or 4 left. I don't know. DUIcomic.bigcartel.com. You can get a copy of that. Thanks to Simon Russell, the aforementioned Simon Russell, for sending me a copy. Simon's super good in the advice channel. I'll give this totally. Yeah. Because he works in it day to day, and people say, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? Very giving with his time. Really good stuff. He's done a book called, which comes straight out of Inktober. What is it now? The 12th of November. He's already got this zine out, which is great. It's called Monsters of Parliament, and it's the combining of politicians with famous monsters and horror characters in a sort of satirical way.
They're
really good.
Great. He did the Vampirella, which is the classic pose where she's kind of pointing with a bat. Who did he do for that? Was it Liz Truss?
Was it? Wasn't Sue Ellen? Was it?
It might be Sue Braverman.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. You know what I think about Vampirella. So go to
when
Simon
Russell. Rather than Vampirella meets. Jesus, man. How are you going to make it out for the rest of November?
I'm going to have to undo my belt. SimonRussell.website. You can go for more details. Honestly, really good stuff. There you go. They're my ones.
Nice. Dan, what have you got?
Mine's a no-brainer. No-brainer issue 1 to 5. The solo comics anthology from our friend Edison Neo. The 5th issue of a solo anthology by Edison Neo. 44 pages, 3 stories, and lots of fun. By the time you listen to this on the Monday, you might only have 1/2 days to back this. It's already made its goal, so definitely grab this. It's fucking awesome. The cover with the orangutan doing the slam dunk on the basketball hoop is brilliant. I can't recommend this enough. Really get on it.
Yeah, you'll only have a day or so once you hear this, won't you?
Yeah, once you hear this,
release.
Don't think, I might back that. If you want to back it, as soon as you hear this, do that, because otherwise.
And if he's gone past it, just get hold of him. I'm sure he can sort it out.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll have comments on the bounce. I think another shout out, Grim Scary Tales made it. We hit the stretch goal, so there's another comic out. Cheers. So big shout out to Damien Kieran and all those that are currently finishing off the comic.
Looking forward to that, man.
I did post up some pages of the competition winner, which was the sleep paralysis. I found that quite nice.
You put the second page of that on your Patreon.
On the Patreon, yeah. It's kind of like I've gone for like a harsh black and white with a lot of spot blacks for it, and it's turned out all right. So if you back the comic, you that.
Can I also say go over to Zoop at the moment? I'm backing loads of stuff on there.
Mate,
they've got some brilliant books in there at the moment.
Their curated approach is really fucking working.
Yeah.
That's good.
Some excellent stuff on there. Yeah, good. I
You wanna see a
might
load of
dive
boobies?
into pick some out for next week's show as recommends, but there's
Good
some
shout.
really good stuff on there. Yeah.
If you want a load of BB, go Kickstarter. There seems to be 3 boots. There's a lot of fucking comics like that on there.
Yeah. Fine by me.
Yeah, fine, mate.
Speaking
You
of
know,
comics,
please them all.
speaking of comics, you should be reading. Shall we recommend some comics to send people off into their weeks
Yes.
with things to read, and just bring the tempo back up again? Get us happy and jonesing for more funny
We're always
books.
happy, kids, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're always happy.
Yeah.
Got another big episode next week. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah. Tony, kicks off.
Yeah. So my first one. We all love funny animal books, don't we? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
I'm terrified of this one.
Yeah. This is not just the comic I want, but it's the sort of comic that we need. Please feel free to use that, David Lodge, as a pull quote. But this is Fuck a Duck, Fuck a Duck Comics number 2. It's mostly by David Lodge, with additional art by Dexter Coburn. £6.50, good magazine size, good price, mixture of colour and black and white strips in it. As a sort of exec summary, short summary, it's another very worthy entry into the don't give a fuck burgeoning UK underground comic scene. There you go. That's how I would describe it. Thank God for people like this. David, aka I think he used his name Theo Lodge online, is a London-based animator, proving once again that good things can come out of Croydon. And I'm ashamed to say that I hadn't seen the first issue, but I was having a scout through the small press stuff at Gosh again, and Greg, past guest, good lad, said I was chatting, so I picked it up, and he says, "Oh, this just came in the other day. What do you think?" And I said, "It looks good, man. I really like it. It looks good." You can find David on YouTube under out_of_ones_mind_cartoons, and I think he's an animator generally for a sort of day job type thing. This is another comic like all the best comics, especially the ones I make, that you can't read in a busy Starbucks. I read it in Cafe Nero, where I always go on a Sunday morning to go and write my notes for the podcast, and I was reading it, and I had to do a little Daniel Butcher look over my shoulder to see who's behind me during it, because it's like fucking hell. It's a collection of short stories involving outrageous sexual antics by anthropomorphic creatures, mostly. I'm going to describe David's art style as, or just generally the whole comic really, as part Hunt Emerson, part Crumb, part Tex Avery, and part Peter Bagg. If you kind of mixed all them up and made it like super sexual, with massive dongs everywhere, that's kind of where you go with it. The cover lets you know what you're going to be getting. There's a duck in a baseball cap sitting on a toilet. I sent you the picture of this. Did I send you this picture?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Sitting on a toilet, masturbating whilst reading anthropomorphic porn magazine, and there's an arrow pointing at stuff. He does this quite a lot, David. There's little asides amongst the image of little things that are going on as well, you know. And it says there's an arrow pointing at a pile of tissues, and it says "cummy tissues."
Ugh.
Sets the tone perfectly. Here's a taste of what you're going to get inside it. A version of Little Red, the first inside cover, one-page strip, black and white. A version of Little Red Riding Hood where the wolf is eating out Granny. Yes, that's what I said in that way. There's a conjugal visit of the titular duck, who goes to prison to meet a pen pal, is a woman he's been writing to, only to discover that she's very large and very scary. And the duck's penis jumps off his body and runs off because he gets scared. And that's just the first 2 pages of this comic. So that's what you're going to get, right? There's Popeye makes an appearance as a junkie. You'd love it, Vince. There's some werewolf action.
Woohoo!
A lady uses the immortal phrase, "I want this on a t-shirt." Nothing better than a rat in the snatch. That includes a rat in a beanie being put in the aforementioned snatch. Dexter, who's the guest artist, does a comic called Goatsy. Yes. Right in the Dan, you dirty bastard, laughing at that one. How did you know? In the center pages, there's don't read this. Don't accidentally drop this out your coat pocket or your bag on a bus, because you're going to get nicked. You know what I mean? They're going to call the police on you. There's a goat with an unfeasibly large penis who has sex with what he thinks are 3 sorority sisters. There's good to see, actually, nice bit of 80s DC Vertigo goodness coming at us. Is a Swamp Thing cameo in the Cheesy and Carrot strip in the back of the book. It's a great find in a sea of what is honestly often very safe and very boring. This comic, I'm glad it's out there. As Greg tells me, he said he was a bit nervous about. Is this good enough to be on the shelf? More than good enough. Better than 90% of that shelf. I tell you that now. Is
it the shelf in Gosh?
Yeah, on the shelf in Gosh. Well, I mean, I don't know how many issues there are, but I hope it sells out and you can get him. I don't think he has an online store. I tried to look, but you can grab a copy from Gosh, or you can contact him on Instagram. Same again. It's on Instagram. It's at out_of_ones_mind_. That makes sense. Play that back and you'll get it soon. I followed him today. More interesting stuff on there. From the looks of it, more of this sort of stuff coming. Some things are a breath of fresh air, aren't they? Some things are just brilliant. Some things are good fun. Some things are a breath of fresh air. This is definitely fun and funny, and I really enjoyed it. It's kind of DIY comics, but actually very readable. You remember, like Weirdo and Zap and stuff like that. Some of it wasn't that readable, was it? Some of it was difficult. This is underground comics, but very readable, very fun. A bit like Fuck Your Mum or something like that we talked about recently, in that sort of realm. But
classic.
Yeah, fuck. That's what I showed you that in a pub, didn't I, Dan? You're like, oh, what the fuck is this? Yeah. Fuck a Duck Comics with an X, issue 2. There you go. It's my first one.
Nice. Dan, what have you got?
I've got a webcomic.
Oh, nice.
A little while since I've done a webcomic review, and there's precious little information about this comic. I've done a fair bit. Tried the author's Twitter account, which has been banned. So I was like, okay, fair enough. The Twitter
I like it even more.
The actual comic is still active. So, but there's very little on the comics homepage or anything about it. It's called Homunculus. You can go to homcomic.com to read that. It's very much a kind of a moody, atmospheric piece where you start off with this kind of real grim. It's all done in black and white grayscale
silhouette stuff, isn't it?
A lot of silhouette stuff. But then it kind of breaks into kind of almost manga-esque kind of drawings with it when people start getting involved. There's some kind of cataclysm that's happened, and you only kind of pick this up through kind of character interactions that they talk about people that have gone and now they're inhabiting this house and they're doing this and that, and it's such a hard one to talk about because it's a very kind of vague story, and like with webtoon, like a webtoon style where you scroll down, this one's like very long format, so there's pages and panels where characters are just moving across the landscape, but it seems to follow this servant of the master who's called Hayden North, and the servant's called Sokoa, and she kind of tends to this master's needs, and somehow her life is intrinsically bound into his, and he sacrificed part of himself for her to live. So the longer he lives, the shorter he does. And there's something about, and he's got an angel's halo on him, and he's kind of like marked out as being a bit different. And every one of these people in this house, Sokoa and a couple of other the girls who kind of work there as servants, seem to have some kind of fear of him, that he's done something or doing something that's not on the up and up. And in the first chapter, he's visited by a lady that he knew from his past, and they keep making veiled references of the two of them working on stuff about the stuff that's happened. And it's an incredibly atmospheric comic. I've not gone all the way through to the end. It's been updating for quite a while, like years, and there's a lot of story in there, and I've only kind of just started like sort of breaking the surface of it. But it's an absolutely fantastic looking piece.
Nice.
Right from the first off, where there's like a wind charger turbine charging up 2 lights, and the girl in question goes and collects it for the house. And this is the first maybe 5-6 spreads before she gets back into the house, brings these generators in, and then the story kicks off from there. if you kind of like more slower atmospheric stories, I really recommend you check it out. It might be your cup of tea. I'm going to read it through, see where it goes, because I've liked where it started. The art style is absolutely lovely, with kind of like these darkened, musty old rooms, and then you get this harsh white of the lights sort of bleaching out the environment. The shadowing and texturing on this piece it's really nice. It kind of the houses look kind of like English, but there's like an industrialization to them.
There's almost a counterpoint between the background and the characters, isn't there? It's almost like a more realistic background, and then you've got like a cartoony character on the top of it, which kind of works for a webcomic, I think.
It kind of reminds me a little bit, it's kind of an easy one to go to, is like Studio Ghibli stuff, where you've got like the more animated character over a kind of a very detailed background that looks real and lived in, although it's not hyper real. And you get aspects of that in this. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, I'd check it out. And because it's a webcomic, it's free. The chap or person involved does do a Patreon that I think you can donate to kind of give him a few quid about the comic. But if you go to Homunculus, which is HOM you can read it there, check it out. It's also on Webtoons. So go take a look.
Nice.
Cool.
My issue 1 of the week is one I've been looking forward to for a long time. It is an Image comic, story by Rob Williams. The art, covers, colours, letters and graphic design are by Parr, and there is another cover done by Lawrence Campbell. This is Petrol Head #1. This is sort of a post-apocalyptic kind of story. It says in the synopsis, in a climate crisis ravaged future metropolis, an old, grumpy, obsolete, smoke-belching, cigar-chomping, hot rod racing robot is one 12-year-old girl's only hope. Together, can they outrace the chasing Robocops with an invention that might just save humanity? I like synopsis like that.
Yeah,
it's just simple.
Tight.
Yeah. No,
that's written by somebody who knows their PR.
Yeah. Without going too far, just setting it up. And this is already one of my series of the year. Fucking, this gave me. There's nothing quite like really looking forward to a series, and we probably not since Hunger in the Dusk and Big Game. Like, I mean, I've been spoiled for choice this year in terms of
as well. Yeah.
In terms of first issues, looking forward to something. The first issue comes out, you're like, it delivers. Do you know what I mean? Just that there's that sigh of relief as fireworks are going off behind your head about like, oh yes, I've got another fucking awesome comic. This for me, this was like a 42-page issue 1 from Image Comics. I think I paid like $3.20 at the time. And you might know these creators. I believe I'm not sure. I haven't read too much of Rob Williams' work, but I know he's a veteran with comics. He's done a lot of stuff.
Love his stuff. Big 2000 AD guy. Done loads of DC.
Didn't he do Suicide? He did Suicide Squad.
He did,
yeah. I believe they might have worked together on the Intestinauts for 2000 AD.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I actually kind of like. Yeah, I actually kind of like they didn't give this to 2000 AD.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I want them to make a few quid on it. I think it's too good for them. Yeah.
This, I mean, if there's any justice in the world, I don't know why I went musical there. This should be a fucking phenomenon. This is big, bright, colourful. Like, the action is unbelievable. There's world building. It's a simple story that you can follow. That's got heart and emotion, and it is predominantly a series that's about robots, but the robots have more humanity than most of the humans in it, and it all stems around Petrol Head, who is the main guy, who for some reason I kind of get this feeling, the way it's written as well. Rob does this way of writing where it feels English, even though it's got this big sort of international Hollywood blockbuster feel to it. Like, it's almost like I've got a Ray Winston voice in my head for Petrol Head, and he has this little robot that he made himself. That's like I think it's a blue tit or something like that, isn't it? He's got a little robot on his shoulder, but it talks with a Cockney accent, doesn't it? Like the first thing that it's on his shoulder.
He's Welsh, isn't he? Rob Williams, I think, isn't he?
Yeah,
He's Welsh guy.
Oh, is he? Yeah. like for instance, there's it starts off with Petrol Head sort of standing by this monument in this metropolis, like I think it's like some sort of memorial to one of his fallen friends, and he's not allowed to be in the city. And a few panels in, you see this little. It focuses on the robot bird who twists its head round and just goes, "Oi, oi, watch yourself! Fuzz is coming." And I thought, my first thought was, "Hold on, the bird fucking talks." Immediately I was like, "This is strange." Just that little moment was like, I think this might be something a little bit special. And certainly that character goes all the way through it. That bird is called Dave, by the way. It's
just little Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah. But then it sort of cuts back to when Petrol Head was in these races. The Petrol Head 5000, and it's a double-page splash, which, if you take away the little narration panel in the top left, give me that on a print, big, put it on my wall. It's fucking glorious, because there's like a car. I mean, this is almost like a Battle Angel Alita meets the Fast and the Furious crowd. This kind of like intense action. We talk about how difficult it is to do a car chase sometimes. There's car races, and it moves at a pace. Like just
what I've seen looks great.
There are explosions. The cars are brightly coloured. One of the things I loved about this series actually is how, like, it's not just neons either. Normally when you have a metropolis, everything is like a neon pink and just green, and that's the only two colours they use. This is cyans, yellows, blues. There's reds, just wonderful tonal sort of palettes being used through it. That when it switches to the O, which is like the command centre that is like almost like marketing and running this race, almost like, you remember Death Race sort of 2000, that sort of like someone's doing the editing as the race is happening. It's got that kind of feel to it. When it cuts to them, that is all in like these cold bluish hues. Immediately you know exactly where you are in the comic. There's wonderful characters that are built up throughout. Even like the supporting characters are well built. And then you cut to a story where in the future, humanity, there's only a couple of cities left on Earth, and they're within these large domes. And they're basically being told anything that is outside the dome is not safe. For your own safety, you need to stay in here. But there is a young 12-year-old girl whose father is like a genius scientist, and he's working on something that may prove that might not just be the case. There's more to that. They don't divulge all the story in issue 1. You can certainly see the mystery is going a certain way, because as it goes on, the main characters that we have, which is not a huge cast, meet up towards the end in a really satisfying way. So I was just thrilled. I just thought, I hope this is good. I just went through it quickly, and then I went back.
Yeah, I read this yesterday. Actually, I really liked it.
Yeah,
I'd say. Yeah.
And there's plenty of chatting in there. There's plenty of dialogue, and there's plenty of world building. But it still moves at a really nice pace. Yeah. It goes really well. It does, much like the synopsis that is given. It gives you exactly what you need, and certainly
the cracking image book. It's what Image is there for me. That's
nice.
Yeah. I mean, this is obviously, as I said, I haven't read too much of Rob Williams' stuff. I'm immediately a fan of the way that he does.
Good dread as well. He does good dread.
Absolutely fantastic with dialogue.
Mega city environment. Yeah.
Dialogue is individual. Do you know what I mean? These people have individual voices, which sometimes we don't say it enough. That sometimes writers have to give. Even if there's a lot of characters on, everyone's got to have their voice, don't they?
As opposed to current writers who just give them their own voice.
Yeah.
Everyone's
a self-insert.
Yeah. So I'm immediately, I'm looking forward to checking out more Rob's work. I've talked about Parr when he did Legion of the Damned before.
You're not a fan of his, are you?
I'm as I sit, there's a massive Fallout print behind me on the wall of him. I'm a little bit of a fan of his.
I was surprised this was so brightly coloured. I'm almost used to him using like a limited palette sometimes.
Yeah.
Is that right? I'm right about that. Do you think?
I think when he did Legion of Damned, it was such a black metal goth.
That's what I'm thinking
of. Reds, greys, darks. If you go on like his website and he's got a couple of amazing Transformer prints actually.
Okay.
The dude can draw cars. Okay, right. But not only that, he can draw like cities. There's a lot of detail in this book. Almost it feels like European in the way that like everything's detailed. For me, when we get to the end of year list, there's 3 artists that are my artists of the year. He's one of them by far.
Right.
With this book, and I think this is a massive. If people don't look at this and go, holy shit, where has this guy been? And I also like it as well because he's clearly a graphic designer, because he's done all the design and the layout. There's
very tidy.
Exactly, but a genuine thought to how the book's narrative pacing doesn't suffer for that. I mean, sometimes, I don't know if you agree with me, Tony. Like, I love like Jonathan Hickman's graphic design and stuff like that. But there was times when I was reading like a Hickman book and it felt like the graphic design overtook.
Especially the early days.
Yeah.
Some of the early nightly news and stuff like that really got in the way.
Yeah.
It's an exercise in design before storytelling sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit that's getting in the way a little bit with some of the X books now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this feels like just an absolutely roller coaster comic book that is designed.
Get this.
Really, you'll fucking love it, Dan. I'm pretty sure you'll love this.
Does look like a
petrolheadcomic.com. It says there's new, because they're clearly
they've got extra bits, haven't they, in there?
Yeah,
as well?
there's some bits that there's a couple of like sort of sketches. You see character designs because Petrolhead himself has a real. There's almost a Hellboy.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
he's got one like huge arm.
Because at one point he goes, "Why is he smoking?"
Yeah. Because he's got cigars, and yet his head almost looks like a tank. Do you know what I mean? He's a bulky sort of racer, and he has an arm in his chest. Did you notice that, Tony? He's got like a little arm. He's got a little arm in his chest as well. So he's got these huge arms. It's just really good. The next issue's on sale December the 13th. Absolutely unbelievable issue. Do not miss this. If you want, we always say about it, if you want just good time comics, this is good time comics. This is what I'm here for. And
nice.
I just happen to be a fan of the artist, but what I got was, holy shit, this is just a brilliant series. So yeah, Petrolhead #1. It's another one of those going in the best of list, and I've only just read one fucking issue, so I'm looking for, and I really hope that it gets the love and attention it deserves, because they clearly the creators care about this, which speaks volumes when you make a comic and you really care about it. So yeah, check it out. That's my one.
Good
Tony,
last one, Vampiress Carmilla, issue 18. And generally the Warrant magazine world. Yeah, I know. So after we just come out talking from something very similar. I suppose the easiest way to describe this would be it's magazines. There's a number of them. So we've got the Creeps, which is now called Shudder magazine, not to be confused with is it a streaming service, Shudder?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. Not
to be confused with that, which makes searching for it online difficult. Vampiress Carmilla, and then there's sort of various versions of that. You got a Shudder Spooktacular Vampiress Fear book, and they are absolutely shameless homages to Warren magazine and Creepy and Vampirella and Eerie and all that sort of thing. As soon as you see the covers, you'll know that you're in for a No Excuses Twist in the Tail kind of black and white horror magazine vibe, very similar to the magazines that we kind of spent most of October studying, to be fair. If you read up on the early days of this publishing venture, they claimed that they aimed to recreate the Warren magazines using as many of the creators who worked on the original line. But recently, they've also been using some contemporary creators. I get a sense that they're looking at stories that appeared in Vampirella and kind of not exactly mimicking them. But there's a story that came into you, Dan, actually, about a Hoover salesman. Do you remember that one?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
This starts exactly the same way, one of these stories.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I don't think Don Glute wrote into you, but
no.
like surprisingly very similar. So Don Glute, as I mentioned, does everyone know who Don Glute is?
No.
He's a 79-year-old man who wrote extensively for the original Warren magazines, as well as being the creator of some of the, I've got a fisto in front of me, allegedly being creator of some of the Master of the Universe characters. He does a story. He does a couple of stories in this one with an artist called Rodel Nura, very good, and that's about a Hoover salesman who comes to, I'm going to describe it as a feathery end. There's a vampiress story or female vampire story from Bambos Giorgio, who I think is a UK writer, and Santos Zabelos, which is got the art has got a real Colon-esque feel to it. I mean that in the sense of Gene Colan. And I think Santos could easily have worked for the original version of this magazine. Definitely, really lovely. There's a guy called Monsieur Damon. He's got he draws one of the strips, and it's got that sort of grey wash you used to see quite a lot in Creepy and Eerie. You get that sort of two-tone quality to it that I think Dick occasionally used it. Wallywood did use it, and he's got that sort of slightly more simplistic kind of look to his stuff. It's done so much like a homage. There's a black and white. It's got that sort of black and white newsprint style paper, the very light paper. I mean, this really does feel like an old school throwaway horror magazine that your parents probably wouldn't have liked, that would sit on the side in the barbers or something like that. There's a contents page which is just literally looks like it's been lifted out of the Vampirella story, and it's even got a Carmilla fan page where you can write in letters and a coupon you can cut out and send away to be in the fan club. And this is a contemporary book. Listen, it's not all perfect. I think we often say about anthologies, they're not all hit, are they? For me, it's got a pretty good hit rate. I think the nostalgia stuff does play into it for my enjoyment of it. It's got some absolutely excellent covers. If you have a look at Shudder magazine online, guys, you'll see a lot of the covers are by a guy called San Julian. The editor is Rich Saller, not Richard Saller, the creator who we lost in 2020. And I think Don Glut is like executive editor or something. He's got a role within the company as well. It's 50 odd pages. It's $5.95. So again, another good value thing. The issue, if you get Shudder, look for issue 2 because you'll love it, Vince. There's a brilliant Kelly Jones werewolf story in there, just gorgeous.
Yes. Nice,
yeah, absolutely gorgeous. So it's brilliant. So have a look for the Warrant magazines. You'll see them in comic shops. I think that's probably the only place you're going to see them at the moment.
Okay.
I've got a couple of them from Strange Apparitions. I've got a couple of them from Gosh, and I've got a couple from Forbidden Planet. Actually, I think Forbidden Planet stocked them as well. They're just good fun, old school, nasty little twist in the tale stories with that sort of nostalgia attached to them. But yeah, really good. Really enjoyed it. There you go. It's my second one.
Nice. Enjoying comics. Imagine that.
There you go, man.
Imagine that. But it's something that we have been doing and will continue to do every week. And we hope you have enjoyed this particular episode. We're putting the soapboxes away for a little bit. And
big one next weekend, guys.
Yeah,
I'm very excited. I'm excited about next weekend.
And we're also going to be rolling on to Christmas and getting excited about the end of year stuff and just all the good stuff in general. So there's plenty to look forward to as we finish off 2023 and look forward to 2024 and all the comics that we have yet to read. But of course, if there's anything on this episode that you want us to shout about, if you've got any comic shops, if you've got any comic events, if there's a particular bit of comicdom you want us to discuss and divulge on more, because we love doing episodes as well where really informative and people learn more about stuff. Take our recent Dracula episode. We got a load of good feedback about people sort of going, I didn't know all of that about Dracula, and now lots more people are into Dracula. So all that and beyond. But if there's anything you want us to talk about more, get in touch with us. awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Follow us on social media. On X, we're on @TheAwesomePod, and I've forgotten what we're on Instagram, but we're on Instagram as well.
We're going to get back on Instagram.
We're going to get on it. Because we'll probably be there more, just especially when we're on there. We'll just be talking about great comics that you should be checking out and things like that.
I'm still posting up my Jovember.
Oh, mate,
which
so
is
good.
beautiful. You did Flint recently, and I got half-mast. I love Flint. Anyway,
half-mast was empty.
First, it's no nut November.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Full mast all the time at the moment.
I had to concentrate. Like, anyway.
Honestly, for all the guys listening, stay strong. I did a little.
I mean, listening to our dulcet tones, it must be really difficult every week as well.
Fucking very. Even I'm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were ASMR before ASMR was a thing, weren't we?
I don't even know what that is, and I'm still hard.
Ass to mouth ratio.
Oh, God.
That's what I always look for in my porn grading.
Right, okay. But thank you for listening to us, whether it's on the website, awesomecomics.podbean.com. Join the Slack community. Keep the conversation going, even if it's just to say, could you stop being so filthy?
Yeah, stop being so fucking wrong.
On a slightly tip for next week, I was trying to find a picture of River Song naked because I had a discussion with a friend of mine at work to say that she'd been naked in Essex Boys, and I can't find it. So if you've got that, send it through to me.
Okay, so when Tony says things like that, me and Dan usually distance ourselves from him a little bit.
Usually, to be fair, I take Tony up on the challenge.
You have done, yeah.
Okay, well, I was trying to do you some good PR there, Dan, but you threw yourself under the bus. So sorry about that. But thank you for listening.
Take a few lessons from me on that regard.
Thank you for listening to us on the website, awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, say something nice, leave a review. Helps get the word out about the show, and more people who listen, more people discover cool comics. And we always welcome more people to this amazing community that is, seems to have sprung up around the show. We don't know how it's happened. But if you also listen to us on other networks like Spotify, Amazon, Stitching, Podnose, Podknife, what networks are we on, Tony?
We're on Pod, Brothers and Sisters, Pump Up the Volume.
Dance. Anyway, that is an absolute banger.
That's just in my head earlier. I couldn't get it out, so I'll just say it.
Yeah. One of my favourite jokes probably of this year was on that that Philomena Kunk TV show. Once every episode there would be a reference to Pump Up the Jam. Oh dear.
I had a fucking terrible joke yesterday. It made me laugh. It's truly grade F shit. So a dad was washing the car with his son. After a few minutes, son said, "Dad, can we use a sponge?"
I saw that one.
Oh, actually, I really like that. Anyway, where can people find us online, etc.? Tony?
Neveronanything.com. Every week on a Wednesday, I'm posting my favourite book and my least favourite book of the week. So go and have a look. Plus a ramble from me as well.
Spicy. Dan?
You can be Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com. That's going to return next issue in 2024. And every day I'm posting up these Jovember pictures on my Instagram, which is, I think it's at Dan at Vanguard or something like that.
Yeah.
Over Christmas, we'll have a little drawing challenge again, shall we?
That's a good idea.
Yeah, good fun.
I don't know if we've got time to organise it. We know we did like the Secret Santa thing where you do a little drawing for someone and send it out to them.
Oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, it's still only November.
There's still time for that.
Yeah.
Plenty more to get involved with. You can find me on social media at Jester Diablo. Thank you very much for listening to this week's show. Join us next week for more rambling and awesome comics chat, as well as, of course, great indie books to check out and for your working week. And until then, wherever you are in the world, we hope you're happy, healthy, doing well in yourself, and reading comics that you enjoy, because that's what it's all about. Never mind.
Tell us about them as well.
Yeah, never mind all this business nonsense, all the chitter chatter, the back and forth online. It's all white noise. As long as you're reading a book you're really passionate about and you really, really enjoy, it doesn't matter.
I think it comes from us not wanting it to go away.
Yeah,
exactly. We love it so much. That's all it is.
Yeah. And if you've got a book that you want us to know about, please get in touch. So until then, keep reading loads of cool comics. Keep making loads of great comics.
Yes.
And as always, what should they do, guys?
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
See you next week.
See you later.
See you later.